Naruto, in the name of time, I will shake the ninja world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Nagato. In a small town, Zingai Feng appeared out of nowhere, sensed it a little, and curled the corners of his mouth. This is it. Then he walked in and looked around. This is a small border town in the land of thunder. Due to its remote geographical location, economic growth is slow, and judging by the street vendors, it is not wealthy. After walking for a while, I saw a circle of people in front of me, and there seemed to be a quarrel among them. He walked forward, pushed through the crowd, and squeezed to the front. Then he saw 3 children begging in front of a pharmacy. "Boss, please save Yohiko." Nagato knelt on the ground, trembling, and kowtowed so hard that blood could be seen coming out of his forehead. But there are only a few people who can get something for nothing in this world. The boss waved his hands impatiently, looked at them with disgust, and said, "Go away. Don't disturb my business. If you don't have money, get out of here. This is not a charity or welfare home." After saying that, he muttered again, "It's really unlucky to encounter something like this." Hoshino Fen quietly watched the scene happening in front of him and did not rush forward to intervene. "That must be Nagato. He seems like a shy kid," Hoshino Kaede said secretly as he looked at Nagato, who was still begging. Judging from his appearance, one can guess that he is a very introverted child who doesn't talk much. It takes a lot of courage for him to do this for his companions. Boom, boom, boom. While thinking, Nagato kowtowed again. This time blood gushed out from his forehead. Knowing that the force was not small, as the only girl among the 3, Konan couldn't bear to see Nagato continue like this, so she cried, "Nagato, forget it, your body can't take it." At this time, Yohiko, who was half conscious, also spoke with difficulty, "Nagato, don't ask him." Having said this, Yohiko seemed to have used up all his strength and fell into deep sleep. The miserable state of the 3 children caused the crowd to sigh, but no one dared to go forward to help. It's very realistic and cruel, but that's the way the world is, and Hoshino Kaede can understand it. That's human nature. Nagato carried Yohiko on his back, staggered to his feet, and left with Konan. There was no hope of treatment here, so he could only leave and find the next home. He begged for a whole day, and Zingai Feng followed him for a whole day. As night fell, the 3 people who had failed to find medical treatment came to their temporary residence, a tree hole. Nagato leaned against the tree, exhausted, panting, clenching his fists, and gritted his teeth. "Damn it. If this goes on, Yohiko won't be able to hold on." Konan was about to comfort Nagato when suddenly a voice sounded and echoed in her ears, "The kid won't make it through the night." Nagato was startled and looked back suddenly. In the night, the pair of purple eyes seemed particularly mysterious, dark and deep. "Who?" The bright moonlight appeared in the sky, shining silver light on Zingai Feng, who slowly appeared in front of them. "Hello." Nagato felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and a strong sense of crisis filled his heart. "Who are you? What are you going to do?" Nagato asked vigilantly. His intuition told him that he could not make an enemy of him. Zingai Feng smiled slightly. "Help you." Even so, Nagato remained vigilant, secretly accumulating pupil power, preparing for a desperate battle, being able to approach them silently. "He must be very powerful." "I don't believe it," Nagato said in a deep voice in response. Hoshino Kaede nodded. "I understand," but then he looked at Yohiko and sighed. "But except for me, you can't find anyone to help you. This child is seriously injured and is on the verge of death. If he doesn't receive proper treatment, he will definitely die tonight." The calm tone revealed a cruel fact. It is not pleasant to be hit hard by the wreckage, as his moves are very powerful and open. Nagato's face suddenly changed, his eyes were panicked, and his resistance was reduced. He hurriedly said, "Do you have a solution?" "Of course there is," Zingai Feng smiled confidently, but then he looked at Nagato. "It depends on whether you dare to believe me." Hearing this, Nagato's face became uncertain and he was in a dilemma. Seeing this, Konan said to Nagato, "There is no other way." Yes, there was no other way. Nagato was awakened by these words and immediately stopped hesitating and made way. Zingai Feng smiled slightly, nodded at Xiaonan, and said, "A wise choice." After getting the approval, Kaede Hoshino walked over. When passing by Nagato, she rubbed his hair. Then, regardless of Nagato's expression, she went straight to Yohiko. "The little guy is quite lucky. He can hold out until now with this kind of injury." With just a quick glance, Feng Xingai knew the approximate extent of his injuries. The internal organs were severely damaged and bones throughout the body were broken in many places. The broken bones were stuck in the flesh and blood and could not come out. It must be said that even an experienced ninja would not be able to endure such an injury as Yohiko. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was torn to pieces, but he didn't even make a sound, which made Xingai Feng look at him in a different light. Nagato asked nervously, "Can it be cured?" Even though he had asked it before, he couldn't help but ask it again. Of course. Xingai Feng gave him a reassuring look and then pointed with his finger. Suddenly, green spots of light appeared in the air and merged into Yohiko's body like leaping elves. Creak creak as the light spots merged, bursts of subtle sounds suddenly appeared, which were repairing the bones of the whole body. A quarter of an hour later, the glow faded away, and Xingai Feng stroked his chin and muttered to himself, "The bones have been repaired, and the next step is the internal organs. Want to turn back the time of your internal organs?" Feng Hoshino was caught in a brainstorm and was struggling. Backflow is the easiest and takes the least time, but after thinking about it, Feng Xingai decided to use the slowest method. After making the decision, Hoshino Kaede looked at Nagato and said, "I have healed the external injuries, but the internal injuries will take quite some time." When Nagato heard this, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief, which meant that Yohiko was fine. Konan also looked delighted, happy that Yohiko was safe and sound. "Well, let's get down to business." Hoshino Kaede smiled and looked at Nagato. As soon as these words were spoken, the joy just now disappeared instantly. Nagato had a calm expression and stood in front of Konan without leaving any trace. "What do you want? What do you want?" Xingai Feng was stunned for a moment, then he understood and waved his hand. "You misunderstood. I'm not here for the samsara." Nagato frowned, but believed it about 70% in his heart, seeing that he was puzzled. Xingai Feng pointed at him and said, "I want you." Konan, who was standing by, suddenly became nervous and looked at Nagato with a worried look, but surprisingly, Nagato did not resist this, but nodded calmly. "Okay, I'll go with you, just don't hurt them." Xingai Feng couldn't help laughing. This little guy obviously misunderstood something. Chapter 227 Crystal of Life. "Your name is Nagato, right? Did your mother tell you your last name?" Hoshino Kaede said kindly. Nagato was stunned for no reason, his thoughts drifting away, and his mind recalled the scene when he was a child before his mother passed away. The mother gently stroked his cheek and said to him softly, "My child, you must remember that we were once a powerful tribe, and we left our homeland after encountering great changes. Our surname is both our glory in the past and our death warrant now. Remember, do not tell your surname to others, as it will bring you misfortune." The earnest instructions from childhood suddenly emerged from deep in his memory, and Nagato was in a trance for a moment. Seeing that he was distracted, Xingai Feng narrowed his eyes and continued, "Your last name is Uzumaki, right?" Nagato suddenly raised his head, stared at him intently, and said in a serious tone, "What do you want to say?" Xingai Feng sat down beside the bed, as if recalling something, and said, "When the Whirlpool country was destroyed, the Ashina clan leader secretly sent some of his clan members away to avoid being wiped out and having their bloodline wiped out. He never thought at that time that the Uzumaki clan could still survive." He looked at Nagato with a smile in his eyes. Hearing this, Nagato frowned. "Are you saying that I still have people in my clan, and you want me to go with you because my last name is Uzumaki?" Smart, right answer. Seeing that he had a clear mind, Xingai Feng couldn't help but praise him. Nagato looked at Konan and Yohiko, and thinking of the companionship they had shared over the years, he shook his head resolutely and refused. "Sorry, the past is gone with the wind, and I am very happy with Yohiko and Konan." The shy boy was determined, and the stubbornness in his eyes could be seen. Hoshino Kaede's smile faded, and his expression seemed to become a little gloomy. A palpitating aura rose around his body and then swept towards Nagato. The piercingly cold gaze was like thousands of cold needles, piercing into the flesh and soul, as if the blood had been frozen. "It seems that my kindness makes you think I'm easy to talk to, right?" The tone, which was originally as warm as spring, suddenly took a sharp turn and sank to the bottom of the deep and cold pool. The astonishing and overwhelming momentum made it difficult for Nagato to breathe, but even so, his tenacious and determined eyes did not waver. Although a spark is not as strong as a raging flame, it also has its own unique light. Although this light is small, it can illuminate a small area in the dark and warm people's hearts. After staring at Nagato for dozens of seconds without showing any sign of wavering, Hoshino Kaede lowered his head and chuckled. The gloomy look on his face disappeared, and a gentle smile reappeared on his face. This change made Nagato's brain confused. The CPU was spinning at a very high speed, and it seemed as if smoke was coming out of his head. Loyalty and righteousness. Very good. Nagato breathed a sigh of relief. Everything that had just happened had made him extremely frightened, and his psychological defenses were about to collapse. Konan comforted Nagato and calmed him down with just a few words. Hoshino Kaede was very curious about how she did it, but before he could ask, the little girl turned around and glared at him, as if there was a deep hatred between them. Hoshino Kaede covered his mouth and coughed lightly, pretending not to see it, and said to Nagato, "This samsara eye is a great burden on him. You must have paid a great price to defeat the Raikage in an instant. Although nothing can be seen now, something will definitely happen in the future. Only by coming with me to Konoha can you recuperate properly, otherwise you will die young." Hearing this, Nagato was about to refuse again, but Zingai Feng said first, "I know you don't want to be separated from them, so both of them can stay with you." As he said this, he looked at Yahiko and said something that Nagato couldn't refuse, "This kid needs to rest and needs a quiet place. Can you create such an environment now?" Nagato and Konan looked at each other and then fell silent. No one said anything, which meant they agreed. Zingai Feng clenched his fist into the void, and a wisp of time and space appeared in his palm. Then he waved it at Yahiko and put it into his body. In an instant, his time stopped. Hoshino Kaede carried Yahiko on his back and stretched out his hands to the two of them, saying, "Hold me tight." The two did as they were told, and then they felt dizzy and their vision went dark for a moment. The next second, the scene around him changed and he arrived in the Hell Valley. How amazing! Nagato was shocked. Konan's eyes lit up and he looked at Hoshino Kaede with admiration. Hoshino Feng smiled slightly, turned around and shouted to Tsunade, who was not far away, "Tsunade, help me." Hearing the familiar voice, Tsunade, who was wearing a white coat, walked out puzzledly, and saw Hoshino Kaede waving at her. At a glance when they got closer, Tsunade saw the child on his back. "Is this the child with the most serious injuries?" Hoshino Feng nodded, carefully put it down, and called two people to take it to the tent. "Please keep an eye on it for me. Oh, by the way, put this thing on his forehead." Kaede Hoshino took out a crystal-like object and handed it to Tsunade. Such rich life energy. After feeling it roughly, Tsunade exclaimed in surprise and immediately looked at Hoshino Kaede. The shining look in her eyes spoke for itself. Zingai Feng shook his head and spread his hands. "No more. It takes a long time to condense this thing, and this piece was refined a long time ago?" Tsunade snorted, not believing a word of what he said, but he didn't argue too much. He picked it up and turned to go into the tent. Zingai Feng looked down at the two people who looked worried, and said comfortingly, "Once we are here, nothing will happen. We will return to Konoha after we finish things here." Then he looked at Nagato again and said solemnly, "Don't use the samsara eye for now. You can't master it yet." Nagato heard the care in these words and nodded silently. "My lord." Just when Hoshino Kaede wanted to say a few words, Uia ran over. Seeing Yan, Zingai Feng immediately had an idea, and immediately brought him to Nagato and Konan, introducing him. "His name is Uia Makoto, and he will show you around later." After that, he said to Yan, "I'll leave Nagato and Konan to you. People of the same age will have more topics to talk about together." Looking at the two skinny guys, Yan's eyes suddenly showed sympathy. He seemed to see himself at that time in them. "Just leave it to me." Yan patted his chest vigorously. Zingai Feng nodded, said a few words, and then went into the tent. "As soon as I entered, I saw Tsunade placed the life crystal on Yahiko's forehead. Suddenly, green light shone and turned into a stream of light that merged into Yahiko's body. The natural energy around him suddenly became agitated, and with Yahiko as the center, it turned into a vortex, wantonly plundering natural energy from all around. When Tsunade saw this scene, she immediately beat her chest and stamped her feet, showing a heartbroken expression, as if she had lost something important. Seeing this, Zingai Feng's mouth twitched, and he thought to himself, "It's not that exaggerated." Chapter 228. The Fourth Disciple, Yahiko. Tsunade was heartbroken, while Yahiko was comfortably absorbing the natural energy surrounding him to nourish his internal organs, which were on the verge of destruction. Tsunade immediately recorded Yahiko's bodily functions, staring at the instrument intently with a look of excitement on her face. Zingai Feng said helplessly, "That's not the case. You are known as the medical wizard. Stay calm." Tsunade turned around, put her hands on her hips, and walked up to Hoshino Kaede in 3 or 2 steps, her face almost touching hers. "You really are a man who is full and does not know the hunger of a hungry man. Medical treatments can also reach their limits. Just now, that crystal stone saved a person with serious internal injuries. Do you know what this means to a medical ninja?" Hoshino Feng raised his hands and laughed awkwardly. This reaction was so big. What a mistake, what a mistake. HMPH. After pouring out all her inner thoughts, Tsunade snorted and turned to stare at Yahiko's physical condition. Seeing this, Hoshino Kaede shook his head, sat next to Tsunade, looked at the serious face, and explained with a chuckle, that crystal is not a simple one. The energy contained in it is several levels higher than natural energy. After saying this, Tsunade looked at Hoshino Kaede in disbelief and exclaimed, what? Several levels higher? You know, natural energy is already the purest energy in the ninja world, and it is much higher in essence than chakra. This look of surprise was just what Zangiefeng had expected. He nodded and continued, this energy, like natural energy, is distributed throughout every inch of the world, but it is hidden deeper and cannot be detected by scientific means, so, I don't recommend you to obsess over this. Tsunade understood what was meant. This crystal was extremely rare, could not be detected by technology, and could not be used. If that was the case, she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Seeing that she looked a little disappointed, Zangiefeng said again, although this way is not possible, the other one is possible. Hearing this, Tsunade pricked up her ears and perked up. You can go find the teacher, Grandpa. Tsunade was confused. Zangiefeng nodded, the teacher has an immortal body, and the cell activity is the highest except for mine. If you study his cells, you will get unexpected results. Of course, this will take quite some time. Tsunade thought for a moment. This was indeed a solution. She knew her grandfather's recovery ability. Seeing that she was somewhat interested, Zangiefeng said, technology is advancing, and medical methods must also be updated. We can't just work in isolation. Tsunade nodded vigorously and took a deep breath. Okay, I'll tell Grandpa when I get back. Hearing this, Hoshino Kaede smiled. This way, Konoha's medical level and technology will be greatly improved in the future, which is cause for celebration. Just as Kaede, Hoshino was expecting a fantasy in her mind. Yahiko beside her frowned and opened his eyes. Where's this? Hoshino Kaede noticed that Yahiko had woken up and explained, this is Konoha's temporary camp. You just received treatment. Don't talk for now and have a good rest. Once I recover a little, I'll go back to Konoha. After hearing this, Yahiko struggled to get up and sit up, and said weakly, Thank you. Seeing him like this, Tsunade got up and went outside to bring a bowl of porridge. Drink the porridge first. If you are weak and have poor digestion, light porridge is the most suitable food for you. Yahiko took it with both hands. The rich aroma of the porridge whetted his appetite, and he started drinking it in big gulps. Zangiefeng said helplessly, Slow down, don't be impatient, there's more if it's not enough. Despite saying so, Yahiko still finished the drink in just a few gulps, with some rice grains still remaining at the corners of his mouth. Ha! Hoshino Feng laughed and wiped his mouth with a tissue. Yahiko's face turned slightly red, and he stammered, unable to utter a word. Looking at his rosy face, Zangiefeng poked it curiously with his hand. Although his skin was slightly darker due to wind and sun, it was a healthy wheat color. Then, with Yahiko's expression of despair, he suddenly asked, Do you want to be my disciple, eh? As soon as these words came out, Tsunade was immediately shocked and confused. Yahiko looked confused, as if he didn't understand what Hoshino Kaede was saying. Seeing this, Zangiefeng said to him in more detail, Since you are going to live in Konoha in the future, you have to make money, and being a ninja is a good choice for you. You three will form a perfect team. Yahiko understood a little bit, but still said hesitantly, But I am too weak, I can't compare to them. In terms of intelligence, he is not as good as Zianan, and in terms of talent, he is the worst. After years of wandering, Yahiko realized how poor his talent was and how he always fell behind. Zangiefeng raised his eyebrows, reached out his hand, grabbed his cheek and pulled him outward. Hiss! Yahiko suddenly became alert, cried out in pain, rubbed his red face, gritted his teeth and looked at Hoshino Kaede with tears in his eyes. Seeing that he was angry but dared not speak, Zangiefeng's mouth curled up slightly. You underestimate yourself. In terms of willpower, you are much stronger than them. Yahiko asked again, Then Nagato and Konan aren't bad either. Hoshino Feng shook his head, tapped his head, and said, Nagato has been reserved, and there is no one to teach Konan. She has her own escape technique. What do you think? Do you want to become my disciple? Zangiefeng asked again. Hearing this, Yahiko nodded and called out very straightforwardly, Teacher. Zangiefeng curved his eyebrows, nodded, and said, Since I have become your teacher, I will be responsible for you. Rest first and heal your wound. After leaving this sentence, he pulled Tsunade out of the tent. Yahiko looked at the hurriedly leaving Hoshino Kaede, stared at his hands absent-mindedly, and murmured in a low voice, Am I really not weaker than them? There was no one responding to this murmur. Only endless silence. The scene changed and Kid Hoshino and Tsunade came out of the tent. Tsunade immediately asked curiously, "Why? You've been idle for so many years, are you planning to find something to do?" Zingai Feng rolled his eyes at her and said nothing, but urged, "You should analyze it quickly and try to return to Konoha as soon as possible." After saying that, he ran away. Tsunade looked back at the tent, the curiosity in her eyes still remained the same. He muttered, "Are you really so idle?" He shook his head, suppressed his messy thoughts, and then began to get into work mode. After a few days, all the data was collected. These days, the overall appearance of the Blood Pool clan seemed to have restarted their life. The food brought by the Anbu was plentiful, so there was no need to save, and everyone got enough food. Yan was very pleased to see that the complexions of his clansmen were getting better day by day. "Kazuhiko," Hoshino Kaede called out. "Is everyone here?" Kazuhiko bowed his head slightly and said respectfully, "All are here, not one is left." "Yes," Zingai Feng nodded, then looked at the people who were fully prepared and ordered, "Let's go back to Konoha." Chapter 229. Returning to Konoha, the brother with a wronged look. With such a long team, the speed was naturally slow. Fortunately, the hidden cloud village did not obstruct them, but it still took half a month of stopping and walking. After many days, when he returned to Konoha again, Myosejin saw the wide and magnificent gate and couldn't help but open his mouth and let out an exclamation. There was confusion in Kazuhiko's eyes. He looked up at the Konoha in front of him, which was different from the records in the clan, and was very curious. Hoshino Kaede led everyone to the gate. The fourth Hokage, Hatake Tsukumo, was already standing in the front row, waiting there with a group of ministers and clan leaders. This behavior undoubtedly showed the greatest respect to the Blood Pond clan. Kazuhiko felt warm inside, and his impression of Konoha rose several levels, and his favorability towards them soared. "Welcome the Blood Pond clan to Konoha." As he approached, Hatake Tsukumo immediately applauded and welcomed him, saying Makoto and Hiko naturally did not dare to be arrogant, and kept a very humble attitude. "It is an honor to be greeted by the Hokage-sama. The blood pool is not worthy of such a grand ceremony." After saying this, Hatake Tsukumo smiled and said, "Patriarch Kazuhiko, don't look down on yourself. Konoha treats all families equally. Besides, you have an appointment with the third generation. For this reason, I have to come here in person." His words made the clan leaders around him look puzzled, but because the occasion was not right, they suppressed their doubts for the time being. After a cordial greeting, Maruboshi Kasuke immediately said, "Chief Kazuhiko, the Blood Pond clan land has been arranged." Hearing this, Makoto and Hiko expressed their sincere thanks again, feeling deeply moved. "I originally thought that even if they attached themselves to Kid Hoshino, it would still take them some time to integrate into Konoha. Now it seems that all the worries are so insignificant." The attitude of Konoha towards them can be seen from the various arrangements made by the Hokage at this time. Zingai Feng said, "Don't stand at the door, go in quickly." Upon hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo nodded and apologized to Kazuhiko. "I am busy with work, so I will let Elder Sarutobi take you there later." Hiyam said quickly, "You are so busy that it is not easy for you to take time to welcome us. How dare I take up more of your time?" After hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo left with peace of mind. Sarutobi Hirozen said kindly, "Please follow me." Afterwards, a large group of people followed Sarutobi Hirozen and left for the clan land allocated to them by Konoha. What happened afterwards had nothing to do with Zingai Feng. He then pulled Hiko and said to Guji, "This is my new disciple. You take him to my parents first. I will be there soon." Hearing the important words in the conversation, Maruboshi Kasuke looked at Hiko as if he were a rare animal. "It's really strange that after so many years, you're accepting disciples again." After looking at it for a while, he retracted his gaze and said, "Leave it to me." After making the arrangements, he waved to Nagato and said, "Come on, I'll take you to your future teacher." As for Konan, she was spotted by Tsunade and accepted as a disciple early on in her journey. The two had completely opposite personalities, but they got along very well. Nagato nodded and followed silently on the way. Hoshino Kaede told Nagato the origin of his Rinnegan. "I think you can vaguely feel that you are not using this pair of samsara eye smoothly." Upon hearing this, Nagato was not surprised that Hoshino Kaede could see through it, and nodded calmly. "The samsara eye is extremely rare, so the power it contains is naturally extraordinary. There are only 2 pairs in the ninja world right now, including the one in your eyes." Zingai Feng paused, then lowered his voice and whispered, "The key coincidence is that these 2 pairs of eyes, strictly speaking, belong to the same person." When Nagato heard this, his eyes widened in surprise. "Same person?" Yeah, Hoshino Kaede nodded, but then Nagato said something that made him laugh until his stomach hurt. Does this person have two pairs of eyes? Nagato said blankly. Zingai Feng tried to suppress his laughter. That's not the case. It's just that the situation is a little special. The two chatted and laughed, and after a while they arrived in front of an ordinary house. Here we are, right here. Hoshino Kaede knocked on the door and waited patiently, holding Nagato's hand. Wow, the wooden door was slid open from the inside, and Uchiha Madara, dressed in home clothes, walked out, looking extremely casual. Zingai Feng raised his eyebrows. You seem to be living quite comfortably. Even your clothes have become more casual. Uchiha Madara simply ignored him, and his extremely oppressive eyes immediately met Nagato's. The two pairs of samsara eyes looked at each other, and it seemed as if a smell of gunpowder was spreading invisibly. Nagato tried hard to resist the aggressive gaze and gritted his teeth secretly just by standing there. This person gives people unparalleled pressure, only inferior to Hoshino Kaede. After trying it out for a while, Uchiha Madara nodded slightly, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes, and turned to Hoshino Kaede and said, "Not bad." Zingai Feng was not surprised. He looked at Uchiha Madara and said with a smile, "I have brought the person to you. Teach him well." Hearing this, he seemed to feel that Zingai Feng had underestimated him, and immediately snorted in dissatisfaction. Zingai Feng automatically ignored it and told Nagato, "He will be your teacher from now on. Live here with him." Perhaps because he saw that Nagato was a little nervous, he patted his shoulder and comforted him. "Don't be afraid, although this guy has a bad temper, he is very capable. If you follow him, you will definitely learn some skills, and you will achieve great success in the future." After hearing this, Nagato finally had a rough understanding of the person in front of him. To be able to make Hoshino Kaede say this, he must be very capable. After hearing this, Uchiha Madara's mouth corners slightly raised. "Kid, follow me. No one can bully you from now on," Uchiha said domineeringly. Zingai Feng said with a sly smile, "What if it's me? You can't beat me, except you." Uchiha Madara's eyelids twitched. He suddenly felt that he was a bit of an eyesore here, disturbing his show-off. Hoshino Kaede shrugged, said a few more words to Nagato, and then left. The trajectories of the three little ones were very different from then on, and Zingai Feng thought happily on the way home, the future can change, just like Konoha is changing now. A quarter of an hour later, "I'm back." Feng Hoshino returned home and said habitually, "Brother." Hoshino Teru greeted him while sitting on the sofa. Hoshino Kaede nodded, then asked, "Where's Yohiko?" "You mean that kid?" Hoshino Teru said with a gloating look. "He just went out and said he was buying some clothes for him. You don't know how much my parents like that child." Hoshino Teru's tone was a little jealous. He didn't even get half of this treatment when he was a child. Hearing this, Zingai Feng laughed. "You are jealous. It is normal for parents to like children when they are old, but you can't treat me differently like this." Zingai Wei felt aggrieved and pointed at the table full of snacks and complained, "Look, even my treasured snacks have been forced to be contributed." Seeing his brother looking aggrieved, Zingai Feng laughed unkindly. "I think my parents did this on purpose. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230. A bad idea suddenly arrives. These meaningful words made Hoshino Teru's ears prick up. He moved in front of Hoshino Kaede with a curious and gossipy look on his face. "Specially? How do you mean? I only saw that my parents favored that boy." "Huh?" In front of his brother, Hoshino Teru always subconsciously behaves like a child, as if he has not grown up yet. After ruffling his brother's hair, Feng Zingai picked up a bag of snacks, opened it and put it into his mouth. He hadn't eaten for a long time. "Kaka. Yohiko has been wandering around since he was a kid, and he's very sensitive or fragile inside." "Kaka." Hoshino Teru was speechless. Looking at his brother who was talking and eating at the same time, the corner of his mouth twitched. "My parents should have noticed this and paid special attention to it." Hoshino Teru scratched his head, his brain not coming to his senses. "Really? There are so many twists and turns here." Hearing this, Zingai Feng rolled his eyes at him, leaned towards the sofa, feeling the comfortable touch, and spoke with a hint of laziness in his tone. "That's it. Yohiko will live in our house from now on. Don't bully him, kid." Upon hearing this, Hoshino Wei immediately became furious, thinking that his brother didn't trust him, and protested strongly. How could such a thing happen? Seeing his brother's big reaction, Zingai Feng smiled helplessly. "Then I hope it will be as you said. I'm going to sleep first. I've been running around for so many days. I need to have a good rest. Don't disturb me." After saying this, he closed his eyes, and lived in harmony with the world. Everything was so peaceful and harmonious on the side. Hoshino Teru's eyes kept rolling around, thinking seriously about Hoshino Kaede's words, and then an idea emerged in his mind. Then, he stood up suddenly and ran outside at a swift and decisive speed, even using the teleportation technique, making it look like something big had happened in the blink of an eye. Only Feng Hoshino was left at home, sleeping soundly on the sofa, and the last of the noise disappeared completely when Zingai Feng opened his eyes again. Half a day had passed. He got up in a daze and stretched, then an inadvertent glance made him lose all sleepiness and his eyes widened. What's the situation? Did anyone in the family send money? Oh my god, who put so much money on the ground? Feng Zingai looked around and saw that his vision was filled with money, filling every space on the table, on the floor. Everywhere was left without a single spot left. After being surprised for a moment, Zingai Feng's eyes twitched, and he instantly realized who did it. He was immediately furious and roared, "Zingai Wei! Come here!" The roar echoed throughout the house. "Brother!" Zingai Feng poked his head out of the door, looking ignorant and puzzled, not understanding why Zingai Feng was so angry looking at that innocent face. Zingai Feng's anger dropped by 3 points, but he still pointed at the room full of money and asked, "What's going on?" Hoshino Teru said as if to take credit, "I prepared this for my brother." "How is it? Isn't it unique, brother?" Now it was Zingai Feng's turn to be confused. "Where did your brother come from?" He had just woken up and his brain was still not working. Hoshino Teru said as a matter of course, "Of course it's Yohiko. I regard him as my younger brother." Zingai Feng suddenly realized something. He hadn't thought of it for a moment, but he still asked, "What's the matter with this pile of money?" "This is a surprise I prepared for my brother." Hoshino Teru's face was full of anticipation, wondering what expression Yohiko would have when he came back. Surprise, surprise. A question mark slowly appeared above Zingai Feng's head. This could be considered a shock. "How is it?" Hoshino Teru looked like he was begging for praise. Zingai Feng looked at him, then at the pile of money, and felt deeply tired. What was going on? Just when Zingai Feng was about to ask him to put away all the money with a creak, the three of them just came back and saw a drastically changed home as soon as they entered Kinomato Sakura. Hoshino Yoda. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly fell into silence. The two elders narrowed their eyes and jumped back and forth between Hoshino Feng and Hoshino Teru, anger rising in their eyes, and what was even more unfortunate was that Hoshino Teru jumped out at this moment and said boastfully, "Yohiko, this is my gift to you, target locked, ready for battle." The two elders silently put down the things in their hands, rubbed their hands and sharpened their knives as they walked towards Zingai Wei. Then, a shrill scream echoed in the sky. Hoshino Kaede watched this mixed double scene with amusement, and covered Yohiko's eyes considerately. After the chaos, Hoshino Teru quietly cleaned up the house with a big bump on his forehead. Looking at the angry parents, Zingai Feng smiled and said, "Zaya," who didn't mean anything else, he just thought it was a little simple. Hearing this, Kinomato Sakura glared at Hoshino Kaede fiercely and said, "As a brother, you don't even stop me." Zingai Feng was helpless, but didn't say anything. After a while, the house was cleaned up and Hoshino Teru hid behind his brother, not daring to show himself at all. Seeing this, Hoshino Kaede pulled him out and said, "Don't hide. Yohiko is not as fragile as you think." "That's a bad idea." The two elders nodded in agreement. "With your brain, what good ideas can you come up with?" Puff. Hoshino Teru felt like an arrow hit his heart after hearing this. Zingai Feng burst into laughter. Okay, let's end this matter here. Don't scare Yohiko." Hoshino Yoda made the decision, and naturally no one would object. The scene changed, and a crescent moon hung in the night sky like a black cloth. At the dinner table, Yohiko was receiving the care and love from his two elders. The food in the bowl was piled high, as if they were afraid that he would not be full. Hoshino Teru said jealously, "Now that you have the little one, you forget about the big one, right, brother?" Zingai Feng burst out laughing and immediately picked up a piece of food with chopsticks and put it into his bowl. "If you say one more word, Mom will kill you for the sake of justice." Hoshino Teru looked to the side, and sure enough, Kinomato Sakura was looking at him with a half smile, which was like a dagger hidden in her smile. He immediately retracted his neck and started eating. Seeing such a warm and joyful scene, Yohiko couldn't help but be infected, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "That's great. It turns out that I have a share of the gentleness in the world," Yohiko thought secretly in his heart. Zingai Feng had been secretly watching him, and was slightly relieved when he saw this. At least he had stabilized and there wouldn't be any big psychological problems. The family chatted and laughed. And dinner became enjoyable at the moment when everyone was happy. Xing Gaifeng suddenly sensed something, turned his head and looked outside the door, thought for a moment, stood up and said to them, "You eat first, someone is looking for me." After saying that, he left his seat and walked outside. Fortunately, this happened before, so we are used to it and it doesn't affect the atmosphere. We can just eat and drink as usual outside. Kid Hoshino started chatting with Sakuma-shin. Chapter 231 Letter from Daming Prefecture. You come here so late at night, Sakumo. You are disturbing my family's meal. Hoshino Kaede leaned against the wall and said jokingly. Shuameo was helpless. If the matter was not serious, he would not come here in person. Everyone knows that since stepping down as Hokage, Kid Hoshino has let himself go and has been wandering around Konoha all day long. Third generation, there is indeed an important matter that requires you to make a decision. Hatake Sakumo quickly got into work mode and said seriously. This look surprised Hoshino Feng a little. In his opinion, Konoha was now unstoppable. Even if the three countries unite, the road to the unification of Konoha will only take a short time, so there is no need to worry. Shuo Mao has been in power for several years now. He has become calm and his edge has settled down. He is no longer the same as he was before. Even he was so serious. Xing Gaifeng became a little curious. Okay, tell me what's the big deal that makes you come to me in person? Xing Gaifeng listened attentively. Hatake Sakumo took out a letter marked with Daimyo Prefecture. These three long-lost words made Hoshino Kaede's nerves jump. Demingfu? Oh, I see. I forgot about this. When he saw these three words, Hoshino Kaede's memories came flooding back, and he thought of that famous name, Minamoto no Mitsuai Aori. It has been many years, and I don't know how he is doing now, but I think he should be doing well. I just don't know why he is writing to me now. Hatake Sakumo continued. The daimyo sent 2 letters to Konoha, one for me and one for you. The one given to me mentioned that Konoha was going to rule the land of fire and that the daimyo would abdicate and make way for the Hokage. Xing Gaifeng nodded slightly. Seeing that Yuan Guangle had already made the decision, he was not surprised. In that case, isn't this a good thing? Sakumo smiled bitterly and said, the key is that all this is based on you being the Hokage. I see. This is the root of the problem. Sakumo came here in such a hurry because of this sentence. Xing Gaifeng raised his eyebrows, a thoughtful look on his face, and tapped his chin with his finger. It seems that everything is not going well, me. His eyes were deep and his easygoing temperament suddenly changed in an instant. He lowered his head and looked at the letter in his hand. It was another letter for him compared to what was given to Konoha. Feng Hoshino felt that what he had in his hands was the key. With a tearing sound, the envelope was opened, and what came into view was the handwriting that was a mixture of childishness and maturity. Seeing the words is like seeing a person. From this handwriting, we can see the growth of Minamoto no Mitsuai Aori, although the price of this growth seems a bit heavy. After reading it carefully, Hoshino Kaede's expression gradually became strange, as if he had gained a fanatical fan. The letter was full of long-winded words, but contained no substantive content, and the entire tone was full of admiration. Oh, I was overthinking it, Xing Gaifeng said, looking up at Shumeo. You just talked about serious matters in that letter, so, what are you going to do? Since the problem has arisen, let's solve it, Xing Gaifeng said with a relaxed look. Ahem. Shuameo covered his mouth and coughed lightly, saying speechlessly, but the problem is that it can't be solved now. The conditions are not met. Xing Gaifeng nodded. Indeed, I have already retired. But it is a bit unreasonable for you to come to me. While speaking, he looked at Sakumo with a playful look, which contained a double meaning. Shuameo felt a little guilty when he was looked at, and cursed those who instigated him. In his heart he didn't want to come originally because he knew Xing Gaifeng's character very well, but he couldn't stand those people nagging in his ears. Thinking of this, Sakumo looked at Hoshino Kaede's playful eyes and sold those people out. Sarutobi Hirozen, Maruboshi Kasuke, Shimura Danzo. Hoshino Kaede narrowed his eyes slightly and slowly read out their names. But if you listen carefully, you will suddenly feel a piercing chill in your heart. The instigator, Hatake Sakumo, mourned for him silently for a few seconds, and then he felt at ease, as if it had nothing to do with me. He would certainly present great gifts to these people, but this was not what was important right now. Seeing Sakumo looking at him eagerly, Xing Gaifeng held his forehead and said, send someone to protect the daimyo first. Upon hearing this, Shuo Mao said thoughtfully, you don't think this is that simple? Nonsense. Xing Gaifeng rolled his eyes at him. The daimyo system has been in existence for a long time and is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Of course, it only applies to the people in the capital. These people are the most troublesome. Once the daimyo system is abolished, what will happen to those who rely on the system? Tsukumo stroked his chin and continued his words. Unrest will occur, and war will spread across the land of fire, Xingai Feng said expressionlessly. Not only that, the capital is the most prosperous area in the entire land of fire, and its economic scale is not comparable to that of Konoha village. Although Konoha has undergone a series of reforms and its economic strength is growing day by day, it is still a little bit behind the capital of a country. The drastic reform policies have increased Konoha's economy several times, but even so, the capital is still the richest city in the land of fire, except for technology and people's livelihood. Konoha cannot compare with the capital in all aspects. This is Konoha's disadvantage. If we want to complete the transition without bloodshed, it won't be that easy. If they go all out and perish together with Konoha, then we're all doomed. After hearing Hoshino Kaede's analysis, Tsukumo suddenly felt a little overwhelmed. So what should I do now? Seeing that he looked helpless, Xingai Feng curled the corners of his mouth and leaned over to say a few words to him. As expected of the third generation, they have a myriad of strategies. This is a good method. It attacks both the surface and the inside. Shuameo nodded frequently, and his previous worries instantly disappeared. There's no time to lose. I'll be leaving first. Shuameo's eyes were burning with energy and he was full of motivation. He didn't look at all helpless as before. Hoshino Feng waved his hand, turned around and went back home to continue eating. A few days later, thanks to the efforts of a certain mastermind, newspapers in the Fire Nation's capital were filled with stories of corruption among the upper class. Each one is shocking and horrifying, making people feel as if they are fake. At first glance, public opinion is an invisible force. It is usually inconspicuous, but it can stir up the situation and guide people's hearts. The reason why the common people are ignorant and wise is that they know very little. They think that the nobles are perfect and take it for granted that they are superior. They have cages in their hearts that lock their thoughts tightly. The idea that you are born to suffer is deeply imprinted in people's minds. As a result, after several generations, the resistance sentiment is gradually eroded. Blind worship begins to occupy the heart. The people lose their independent ideas and become puppets who are ordered around. Shuomao spread the misdeeds of these people to the capital, exposing their hypocritical side and making this cage no longer so indestructible. And this is just the first step to ignite a raging fire. Chapter 232, Disguise, Awakening. In the capital of the Fire Nation, a strange atmosphere has spread in recent days. The nobles are furious and are trying to find the person who spread the rumor. The civilians were in a panic. On the one hand, they didn't know whether the news was true or not. On the other hand, the ideas they had formed in their hearts were collapsing and disintegrating in an instant. People were in panic. Panic and anger became the main theme of the city, seeping into everyone's heart like water. Inside the daimyo's mansion, Minamoto no Mitsuiori stood on the top floor attic, looking down from the air, his eyes flickering as he watched the chaos gradually rising in the city, and murmured softly, "Have you taken action yet? Will the remnants of the old era finally unite as one and put up a strong resistance, or will they be allowed to split apart and then be slaughtered?" There was a faint smile on Yuan Guanglai's lips, but it disappeared immediately and his eyes were full of complexity. The letter he sent to Konoha was sent out because he had a clear understanding of the situation and had no choice but to do so, so that the initiative would be in his own hands. But the most important thing is the remaining unwillingness and stubbornness in his heart. The daimyo system has lasted for a long time. If we were to perish at their hands, how would we have the face to go to the Pure Land after death? Minamoto Mitsuiori clenched his fists, but then loosened them, and then laughed at himself. When I think about it this way, I seem to be a remnant of the old times. Xingai Feng, you are a strange person, but unfortunately, shaking his head and taking one last look below, Minamoto no Mitsuiori returned to the mansion behind him. Fukuda Yashashi followed respectfully, like a servant. With a flattering smile on his face, the head of the Fire Nation family was so humble, but Minamoto no Mitsuiori just walked on as if he didn't see him. They came to a quiet room, and the attendants dispersed, leaving only Minamoto Mitsuiori. Gudong, 2 cups of steaming hot tea would be nice, one for each person. At this moment, a shadow emerged from the ground, looking neither human nor human, giving people a sense of incongruity. Minamoto Mitsuiori blew on the teacup calmly and took a sip. This calm and peaceful look made Heiju smile sinisterly. It is said that great experiences can change a person. Under such heavy pressure, you have calmed down a lot. The cowardice and timidity I had before are all gone. Then, he asked curiously, I find it strange, are you pretending? Or is it really like this? Yuan Guanglai glanced at him calmly. Which time are you talking about? Black Zetsu was stunned for a moment. This answer was beyond his expectation, but he reacted immediately and laughed darkly. I see. It seems that everyone has been fooled by you. It's hidden so deeply, I guess no one would have thought of it. Minamoto no Mitsuiori was not impressed by this kind of praise, or rather, he didn't care. The evaluation of outsiders is ultimately illusory. Only you know the real situation. Seeing that he didn't respond, Black Zetsu shook his head, feeling bored. Now is the best time for you to take back the power of the daimyo. Why don't you make a move? Minamoto Mitsuiori's eyes were deep, like a dark and cold pond, freezing cold. He was completely different from the timid man of the past, as if he had become a different person. No hurry, there's still time. Hey. Ju said sinisterly, still waiting? If that person comes in person, what else can you do? You have to know that no one in the ninja world can beat him. Even if his teacher were to come back to life, he wouldn't be able to fight back. Hearing this, Minamoto Mitsuiori paused, raised his head and looked at Eizetsu with deep eyes, and opened his lips slightly. He won't come. Are you so sure? What if? Black Zetsu said in surprise. Nothing will happen, Minamoto Mitsuiori said with great confidence. From the first moment I saw him, I could roughly guess what kind of person he was. Confidence, wisdom, and calmness are all his shining points. After saying that, he changed the subject, but at the same time, there will also be disadvantages. Pride and laziness are his biggest shortcomings, just like what is happening in the capital now. Minamoto Mitsuiori's eyes sparkled. I can guess that the idea came from him, but the person who executed it was definitely not him. Clap clap clap. Excellent. Black Zetsu grinned, laughing sinisterly. No wonder your father fell into your hands. You are such a good son. You hold everything in your hands, but you take yourself out, spotless. I guess Hoshino Kaede would never have thought that the cowardly Minamoto no Mitsuiori was the mastermind behind this. Minamoto Mitsuiori glanced at him and said nothing, his heart calm, as if the person who died was just an ordinary person who had nothing to do with him. Since you are so confident, let's see how you can break through the haze that Zingai Feng has cast over your head. I am looking forward to seeing how things develop from here. I hope you don't fail miserably. He looked at Minamoto Mitsue in despair and gradually disappeared into the shadows. When people leave, the tea gets cold. There are 2 cups of tea, one is finished and the other is intact, as if foreshadowing something, and at the moment Black Zetsu left, a hint of coldness appeared in Minamoto no Mitsuiori's eyes. With a snap, he crushed the teacup with one hand. The fragments cut his palm and blood slowly dripped onto the ground. Black Zetsu, who are you? What's hidden beneath that smile? In Konoha? Hatake Tsukumo was listening to the information from the capital. When he knew that everything went well, he smiled with relief. That's good. Let the fire burn for a while, and then add more oil and wood. Tsukumo muttered. If all goes well, this matter can be resolved in another month. At this moment, Tsukumo didn't feel anything was wrong at all and thought it was normal for everything to go so smoothly. Hokage-sama, it's time to attend the meeting. Just as he was thinking about it, the Anbu reminded him. Let Shuameo come back to his senses, put the joy behind him, calm himself down, and then go to attend the meeting. As the daimyo's abdication was imminent, things began to rain down on him, and the number of meetings he needed to attend increased. There are all kinds of complicated things that need his attention, which has made his workload increase recently. Hoshino's house. Inside the courtyard, Hoshino looked at the letter written to him by Minamoto no Mitsuiori with a thoughtful expression. I always feel like something is missing. Where exactly is it? When he was deep in thought, the conversation between Yohiko and Hoshino Teru beside him suddenly woke him up as if struck by lightning. Yohiko, a ninja is someone who can endure things that ordinary people cannot endure. The enemies you face may be cunning or insidious. You must never take them lightly. Yohiko nodded vigorously. He would remember all this. He then asked curiously, who is Konoha's enemy now? Hoshino Teru was stunned for a moment, glanced at Hoshino Feng inconspicuously, and finding that there was no movement, he said, it's the people in the capital and the other 3 great powers. The people in the capital. Zingai Feng secretly pondered, could it be him? Hoshino Feng stood there in a daze, lowering his head to look at the letter from the daimyo. Then an idea flashed in his mind and he suddenly dodged away. Chapter 233. The Third Ninja World War. The storm is rising. A month later, in the hidden cloud village, the 4th Hokage, who had fully recovered, stood on a high platform, his piercing eyes scanning the well-prepared hidden cloud village army below. After the 3 countries communicated with each other, resources and ninjutsu were also exchanged and involved to a certain extent. This has led to a substantial improvement in the military strength of each village. However, The majesty of the Kumagakure ninja was built on the basis of plundering ordinary people. This drained the vitality of the future of the hidden cloud village and overdrawn the trust of the villagers. It is for this battle that they believe that after all the hardships, there will be sweet fruits everywhere waiting for them. The fourth Hokage had a strong and upright body, like a whole mountain, standing before everyone. His aura was so great that it made people admire him, and next to him is the perfect Jinchuriki of the Eight Tails, Killer Bee. This time, almost all the people from the Hidden Cloud Village came out. This battle concerns the future of the Hidden Cloud Village, the land of lightning, and everyone. The Hokage's brows were serious, a contrast to his usual heroic demeanor, and one could tell from his solemn expression how much pressure he was under. Konoha is becoming increasingly powerful and is trying to rule the ninja world. Can you agree to this? Below, thousands of ninjas raised their hands and shouted angrily. No. The gathered sound was like thousands of troops galloping, condensing an unrivaled momentum. When ordinary people see this, they will definitely tremble with fear, their legs will become weak, they will lose their fighting spirit and forget to resist. After years of preparation for war and absorbing population, the already powerful martial arts of the Hidden Cloud Village reached its peak. These nearly 10,000 ninjas were the limit of the Hidden Cloud Village, and a heavy price was paid for it. They did not hesitate to acquiesce in the exploitation of the people's wealth, causing widespread grief in the country. Seeing this, the Hokage couldn't help but puff out his chest, then wave his hand, full of vigor and energy, like a tiger, trying to challenge the position of overlord of Konoha. Let's go! For the future of the land of lightning, for the future. After this incident, the troops were in high spirits and everyone was as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. The mighty ninja army set out for the border, intending to advance straight ahead. This battle took away almost all the guards of the Hidden Cloud Village, leaving only unarmed ordinary people in the village looking at the troops disappearing in the distance. The ordinary people in the Hidden Cloud Village did not pray for them as they did in the previous two wars. Instead, he showed an expression of resentment and pain, stared into the distance, and finally swallowed a bitter fruit alone and silently went back to work. Money is easy to gain, but the people's hearts are lost. This seemingly simple exchange has planted the seeds of Yunin's destruction. The country of Earth, the village of Iwagakure, the third Hokage, Inoki, also gathered the strength of the entire village, intending to target Konoha and seize that large tract of fertile land. And like the Hidden Cloud Village, which has a population of nearly 10,000 people, even if the Hidden Cloud Village devotes all its efforts to training ninjas, its total number is still less than that of the Hidden Cloud Village. However, despite this, its momentum is still not inferior to that of Yunin. Inoki was ambitious. He looked towards Konoha with fiery eyes, as if he felt that victory was just around the corner. The fertile land of the Fire Nation is right before your eyes. Go fight for it and bring back rich fruits to celebrate. Inoki's words were brief, but they still made the ninjas below excited, their blood boiling, and they shouted. Their expressions are as tough as stone, confident and calm, just like their names. Under Inoki's active mobilization, the mighty troops continued to form a long team on the ground and marched towards Konoha. Like Kumagakure, the target was also Konoha. The two villages seemed to have discussed it beforehand and attacked Konoha together, and the same is true for the village surrounded by the sea in the distance of the mainland. Nearly 100 warships were waiting eagerly, quietly awaiting orders from their leader. The water shadow was wearing a shadow robe, looking straight ahead, with the rippling water reflected in his pupils. He looked ahead calmly and said, "Set off." Within just one day, the Hidden Cloud Village, the Hidden Mist Village, and the Hidden Iwe Village all launched wars against Konoha silently. Konoha was caught off guard, as if an invisible force was blocking the transmission of information. Under the attack of the three armies, the Fire Nation's borders quickly collapsed, leaving the defense line open and allowing for easy travel. At this moment, the Third Ninja World War began in the Hokage's residence. The highest alert order was issued and a meeting of senior executives was convened. For a moment, there was a constant sound of footsteps on the roof, and figures were leaping quickly as if they were walking on flat ground. And everyone had a very serious expression on their face. The fourth Hokage, Hatake Sakumo, walked into the conference room while listening to the information coming from the front. Hokage, the border has been completely lost. Kumagakure, Iwagakure, and Mustgakure are jointly attacking Konoha. It is estimated that the army is more than 20,000. This is just a preliminary estimate. The actual number should be much higher. Shuameo nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "It's coming so fast." As he spoke, he came to the crowded conference room, where all the elites of Konoha gathered. They were at least at the Jonin level. An elite Jonin. The older generation includes Tsunade, Jiraiya, Materashi Shishao, Moonlight Knight, Yuhi Shinku, Might I? etc. The new generation is headed by Minato Namikaze, and the rest include Naozuki Senju, Kushina Uzumaki, Shinosuke Sarutobi and the new generation Ino Shikacho. At this time, Konoha was full of talented people, popping up like bamboo shoots after rain. This was an extremely powerful force, enough to easily crush all the villages in the ninja world, and now, they gathered here, looking solemn, completely devoid of their previous leisurely expressions. Hatake Tsukumo pushed open the door and felt a solemn atmosphere lingering here. He looked around and suddenly broke the silence and smiled. Have you eaten? All of a sudden, everyone's eyes turned to Tsukumo, with an indescribable expression, as if saying, "Are you serious?" Tsukumo smiled softly, his lips curled up. "Don't look at me like that, I'm speaking for the third generation." Before he finished speaking, he heard the joking voice of Hoshino Kaede. "Hey, Tsukumo, I don't want to take the blame for this." Everyone looked towards the source of the sound and saw Zingai Feng standing outside the door. Suddenly, the original extremely solemn atmosphere disappeared without a trace. It was as if a huge mountain pressing down on their heads had collapsed, which shows how high the majesty and status of Zingai Feng is in their hearts under the gaze of many people. Hoshino Feng walked in slowly and sat next to Tsukumo. His casual attitude formed a contrast with the serious people. Cough cough. Hatake Tsukumo coughed twice to attract attention to himself. Then he nodded to the Anbu around him. The Anbu, who had been prepared, distributed the current situation to everyone present. This is the intelligence from the front line. Please take a look first. Chapter 234 Strategic Arrangement, Minato and number 039, S Vicious Vision. Crash. In the conference room, the only sounds left in the silence were the turning of pages and increasingly solemn expressions. Zingai Feng looked at them quietly, taking a sip of warm tea, appearing extremely calm and comfortable. Dozens of minutes later, Hatake Tsukumo looked at everyone and said calmly, "Except for the Sand Village, the other three ninja villages have all raided and taken out almost all their assets. It is foreseeable that this war will be even more brutal than the previous two, and many people will die." After these words were spoken, the person who showed the greatest emotional fluctuations was Hashirama Senju, who also attended this meeting. The others also knew the truth, but they all kept silent tacitly. War, is it finally coming? Senju Hashirama looked at the battle situation on the pages of the book and sighed deeply. His expression was inexplicable and a little sad upon seeing this. Uchiha snorted coldly. His whole body was filled with a surge of momentum and murderous intent, like a devil's sword about to be unsheathed. "Hashirama, you are too soft-hearted. They are almost at your doorstep. Why are you still hesitating? Since they dare to take the initiative to attack, we will sweep them away with thunderous means. Konoha has no way out in this battle." Senju Hashirama opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he knew in his heart that this was the only way, so he finally lowered his head. Zingai Feng said, "Teacher, this is not a simple war. It will determine the foundation of Konoha's future unification, so, this battle must be fought." Zingai Feng naturally knew the character of his teacher. Sometimes he was indeed a bit sentimental, but things had come to this point. There was no room for leniency, only blood and fire. "I understand." Senju Hashirama sighed and didn't say much because he could still see the situation clearly. Konoha was already besieged on all sides, and he couldn't afford to cause more trouble for the younger generation. Seeing this, Hoshino Kaede nodded with satisfaction, then looked at Tsukumo and nodded to indicate that it was time for him to come on stage. The protagonist of this meeting is the Hokage, not him. Feeling the gaze of Hoshino Kaede, Tsukumo nodded to him, then stood up, walked to the drawn map and said, "This battle will be a crucial one. All ninjas will be dispatched. Except for some who stay to defend Konoha, all others will gather and fight. The enemy is heading towards Konoha in 3 forces, so we must also split into 3 teams to engage them. We have found out so far that the northwest is Iwagakure, the northeast is Kumagakure, and the east is Kurigakure. The border defense line has been breached, and they are heading here now. In order to better reflect the routes of the 3 armies, Shuameo directly marked them on the map." After saying that, Sarutobi heroes and frowned and murmured softly, "This means that the battle needs to be resolved quickly, since everyone present was very powerful." These words were naturally heard by everyone. Shimura Danzo snorted coldly, his face full of disdain. "They are wishful thinking. They dare to attack Konoha with just these 20,000 people. They are really crazy." This is not an exaggeration. Because Konoha won 2 wars and has developed over the years, it now has more than 10,000 standing ninjas. Its armed forces are overwhelming that of other villages. Maruboshi Kosuk put his hands on his chin and said, "Don't take it lightly. Their strength should not be underestimated. We need to make reasonable arrangements to reduce our casualties. What he meant was that the opponent was not weak, but Konoha would definitely be the winner. So let's see how to reduce casualties. Upon hearing this, Shumio couldn't help but smile. It seems that you are all very optimistic. After saying this, he looked at the new generation of young ninjas, the first of whom was Minato Namikaze. Minato, you are Jiraiya's disciple. Tell me what you think. In an instant, the adult's eyes fell on this shining junior Minato Namikaze. The new generation of genius ninja of Konoha is the only one. History still has a certain inertia, and he still became Jiraiya's apprentice after becoming his apprentice. His talent and ability spread across the sky like a rainstorm, making it impossible for his peers to see his back. He learned the Flying Thunder God technique developed by the second generation, and in terms of speed, he is the best in Konoha. Even Uchiha Madara, who always looked down upon others, praised you. Uchiha Madara, would like to call you the fastest. This young man is also well liked by his seniors. Namikaze Minato stood up calmly, his eyes were sharp, and his words made everyone feel refreshed and surprised. My lords, I think this war is too sudden. After he finished speaking, the originally casual look in Hoshino Kaede's eyes suddenly became sharp for a moment, and he looked at Minato deeply and obscurely. I thought to myself, this kid is quite perceptive. Minato's words left everyone confused. Only Tsukumo asked with interest, why do you think so? Hearing this, Minato continued, this time the three parties' attack was obviously planned in advance. The speed and decisiveness of their actions would have been absolutely impossible in the past. Also, there is one point in the intelligence that caught my special attention. Minato paused, his expression turned serious, and said, even though it was the border defense line, it couldn't even hold out for half a day. This is very inconsistent with common sense. There must be something fishy going on. All the guesses in his mind were poured out, shocking everyone present. They all became dumb and silent, looking at Minato with surprise. Jiraiya, as a teacher, couldn't stop smiling, because he knew that everything his apprentice said was right. He also had this doubt, but it was not as strong as Minato's, and he had not yet reached the point of speaking it out loud. Hearing Minato's blunt but sharp words, Tsukumo couldn't help but smile and nodded, agreeing. This is a suspicious point, but we don't need to do it. As he said this, he turned his gaze to Zingai Feng, who smiled as if everything was under control. Don't worry, the boulder situation was anticipated. Minato saw that the two Hokage looked relaxed, and he suddenly realized that it seemed that all this had been arranged in advance. So he sat down. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost right, Shuamiao began to arrange personnel deployment. Since the enemy had a large number of people, Tsukumo simply waved his hand and sent out all his top combat forces. The troops will be deployed according to their respective means and strengths, followed by additional support. Konoha sent a total of 15,000 ninjas, with 5,000 assigned to each of the three battlefields. Judging from the number of ninjas alone, Konoha is at a slight disadvantage, but if there are not enough people, technology can be used to make up for it. Over the years, Orochimaru has not only developed technologies for people's livelihood, it has also achieved outstanding results in the military field, which can be applied this time. Well, this is the current arrangement. Does anyone have any objections? Shuamiao said. Looking around, everyone shook their heads, and then Tsukumo stood up and gave an order. Then Konoha will enter a state of war. All troops must hurry up and leave the village in 1 day. Understood. Everyone responded without hesitation, then stood up and left a meeting room to go to their respective posts. Chapter 235, The Little Guy and Number 039, S. Argument. The Konoha high-ranking officials had no intention of concealing the news of the war, because anyone with eyes could see that this was a large-scale personnel mobilization. Therefore, there is no point in hiding it. It is better to spread the news so that we can be prepared. Konoha has the strongest foundation and strength in the ninja world, and its people have very strong self-confidence. Even after learning that the Third Ninja World War is coming, there is still no unrest. Most of the discussions within the village were optimistic and positive, making the atmosphere and mood within Konoha seem particularly relaxed, as if the flames of war could not burn here. Of course, ordinary people just think that this war is very ordinary and no different from the previous 2 times, and think that they can win easily this time. Only some people with status and position know the inside story, but they are not fools. If they talk nonsense at this time, they will only end up seeking death behind the village. A group of students from the ninja school are gathered here at this time. In the past, we would take theory classes in the ninja school. However, because most of the ninjas were withdrawn for the war, there was a shortage of teachers and theoretical classes could no longer be taught. Therefore, It was temporarily changed to wilderness survival and practical courses under normal circumstances. These little naughty kids would have cheered for joy, but now everyone looks listless. They were like vegetation in the desert, wilted and lifeless. Each of them had a different expression on their face, either worried, nervous, or looking down in thought. Uchiha Obito leaned against a big tree, staring at the clear blue sky with his eyes fixed on the sky, and sighed softly. "What's wrong, Obito? Are you also worried about the war ahead?" Nahorin asked with concern. Since most people in the class were worried, she subconsciously assumed so, but Uchiha Obito shook his head. "It's not that, it's boredom." Nahorin tilted her head and said in confusion, "Boring?" Uchiha Obito nodded and said with an unhappy look, "I have awakened the Sharingan, and it is a double Magatama. But I can only stay in school. Isn't it good at school?" Nahorin couldn't understand. Obito looked at the battle not far away, which was like a child playing house, and sighed, "I want to be Hokage. How can I waste my time here with these people?" As soon as these words were spoken, the others immediately glared at him, feeling that they were being looked down upon. The most dissatisfied one among them was Asuma Sarutobi. He came over and said unconvincedly, "Obito, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you awakened the Sharingan and got rid of your last place." Because of the awakening of the Sharingan, Obito was assisted by God in actual combat and ranked in the top 3, which enabled him to break away from the last place in the comprehensive test and become a middle-level student. Hearing this, Obito frowned and said, "Who is arrogant? I am just stating the facts." Obito, who had become more mature, did not think there was anything wrong with what he said and thought he was just stating the facts. Fights in school are not allowed to shed blood, only sparring is allowed. This is also to protect students from fatal injuries. Accidents always come so suddenly, so this rule is in place. Obito's words immediately caused a huge uproar, arousing everyone's dissatisfaction. Except for Nahorin, who had a worried look on her face just when the conflict was about to break out. The school teacher Aburame Fuda suddenly appeared and stopped it, saying, "Okay, that's enough." The teacher came on the scene and immediately took control of the situation, and the students instantly fell silent. Seeing this, Asuma Sarutobi couldn't help but curl his lips, but he didn't say anything else. Seeing everyone looking unconvinced, Aburame Fuda sighed and said, "What Obito just said does make sense." Upon hearing this, the students looked surprised and puzzled, with their mouths slightly open. But Fengshen then added, "But only for himself." After saying that, he looked at Obito and said with a tone of teaching, "Although you have followed the third Hokage out before, it does not mean that you can reach the level of being able to go to the battlefield." Although Obito was not convinced, he did not say anything because of his teacher's authority and years of teaching. Seeing him like this, Fengshen frowned, thinking that this couldn't go on, and after thinking about it, he asked everyone to sit together and suspend the activity. "I see that you are not in the mood for class, and the village is not deliberately hiding it, so I will talk to you about this war." As soon as he finished speaking, Obito's eyes suddenly lit up, his originally listless look recovered, and he pricked up his ears to listen. Not only Obito, but other classmates in the class also showed curious expressions and were very enthusiastic. Seeing this, Aburame Fuda nodded and narrated briefly, "In this war, the 3 major ninja villages are going all out to attack Konoha and delay Konoha's progress." Wow! As soon as the teacher finished speaking, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. At this time, a small hand was raised. It was Yuhi Kurenai, the daughter of Konoha's illusion master Yuhi Shinku. "Teacher, can Konoha win?" Children in the ninja world mature precociously, and children of this age already know how to simply analyze the situation, and the words just now clearly indicate that this war will be extraordinary and an unprecedented fierce battle. "Of course, Konoha is invincible," Asuma Sarutobi snorted and said with certainty. As the youngest son of the Konoha elder, his status is self-evident and he knows more than others. Obito glanced at him and said, "I think this will be a protracted battle. With the full strength of the 3 villages, Konoha will have to work hard." After a few people finished speaking, others also started to express their opinions, and basically they all agreed that Konoha would win easily. Aburame Fuda listened quietly to everyone's opinions, nodding from time to time. At this time, Might Guy scratched his head and said, "I think the key to victory or defeat is not the front battlefield." As soon as he said this, Asuma questioned him. He frowned and said, "War is fought on a large scale. It's no longer on the front battlefield. So where is it?" Anyone could tell that these words revealed a sense of disapproval. "That's not necessarily the case," Aburame Fuda suddenly said. In an instant, the little one's eyes turned to him, hoping that the teacher could give an explanation. Asuma was even more blunt, shaking his head like a rattle. "I don't believe it. It's impossible for one person to decide the final direction of a war. Even the third Hokage, who was as strong as the cage of a village, was still exhausted to death by tens of thousands of ninjas. At the strong request of Kid Hoshino, the history of each village must be recorded and understood by students. The deeds of the Third Hokage naturally appear in the textbooks, and the process at that time is recorded in detail. Hearing Asuma's affirmative words, Aburame Fuda shook her head slightly and said meaningfully, "What you said was not wrong in the past, but there are some people in this world that you cannot understand." Obito had a vague guess, and said with wide eyes, "Teacher, could it be that you are talking about?" Aburame Fuda smiled and nodded, "Yes, that's the person you were thinking of. His strength can no longer be simply described as a ninja. His existence is incomprehensible to the world. No one knows how strong he is at full power." Chapter 236, Departure to the Capital. Obito couldn't help but nod his head. He had followed the Third Hokage on missions before, and the one that impressed him the most was the trip to the Land of Lightning. Even the Jinchuriki Killer Bee had to be respectful. As soon as the Third Hokage made a move, everyone was scared like a mouse seeing a cat. This fear seems to be engraved in the bones, and once seen, it will automatically trigger an instinctive reaction in terms of the closeness of the relationship among those present. Zai Hong deserves to be the first, as his father is the disciple of Xing Yifeng. Hearing the teacher's words, Zai Hong was filled with admiration, her eyes sparkled, and she looked like an infatuated fan, and couldn't help nodding. "Even my father doesn't know how powerful our Grandmaster is." Aburame Fuda smiled and said, "Master Shiku's strength should not be underestimated. In recent years, he has even been known as a master of illusion." His words also illustrate this point in disguise. This war is said to be a battle of strength, but in fact it is a battle of top combat power, and the lowest is at the level of Hokage. And over the years, Konoha village has been full of talented people and masters. Not only are they far ahead of other villages in terms of strength, but they also have a profound foundation and strong backing. Therefore, the outcome of this war has already been determined, and the real decision-making power lies in the hands of those experienced and resourceful adults. From what I know, the background of Konoha village is simply unfathomable. If they really want to resolve this war, it won't take too much time at all, but the real difficulty lies in how to properly handle a series of things after the war. This is not an easy task. After listening to this, Asuma felt as if his head was stuffed with paste, and he was completely confused. Although he was more mature than his peers, he still felt very confused and lost about these profound and complex words. What happened after the war? What does that mean? Asuma muttered to himself. Fenshin saw everyone's puzzled expressions, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a smile, but he did not give a direct explanation. He looked at the others to see how they would react at this moment. Obito was scratching his ears and cheeks in a panic, looking like he was thinking hard, and his originally neat hair was messed up by him. My guy had an innocent look on his face, and seemed to have no idea about this problem. Zahikirnai supported her chin with both hands, frowned tightly, and fell into deep thought. Various strange expressions appeared on everyone's faces, as if a farce of all kinds of people were being performed. Seeing this, Aburame Fuda nodded secretly in her heart. He knew that only through deep thinking could he find the answer to the problem. Being a ninja does not just mean fighting. There are various other factors involved that make up the life of a ninja. These children will encounter obstacles and troubles in the future, but as long as you think carefully, there will always be a solution to anything. Years of experience have taught him that there are always more solutions than problems. Whoosh! Suddenly, a person dressed in Anbu clothing appeared in everyone's sight. Aburame Fuda suddenly stood up and asked seriously, "What are the Anbu doing here?" The Anbu ninja spoke the order like a machine and then disappeared. "By order of the Hokage, Uchiha Obito is ordered to go to the village entrance and meet up with the Third Hokage before leaving the village." After the Anbu left, Aburame Fuda still had a look of astonishment on her face and stared blankly at Obito. The other children were amazed and chattered non-stop, their tone full of envy. "Wow, Obito is actually going out of the village with a sandame again. It's really enviable. Why am I not so lucky? I wonder what the world outside is like? Is it as dangerous as the adults say?" Listening to the children talking back and forth, Aburame Fuda came back to his senses, coughed lightly and said to Obito, "Since it is the order of the Hokage, then go quickly." Obito had been waiting for his words. After hearing them, he immediately stood up impatiently and was about to leave, but before leaving, Fengshen said solemnly, "Remember to protect yourself when you leave the village. Don't be stubborn, and listen to the third generation." Obito patted his chest, grinned, and assured, "Teacher Fuda, I will definitely come back intact." After saying that, he headed towards the village. Aburame Fuda looked at Obito's departing back, feeling mixed emotions and full of worry. You have to come back intact and alive. And his childhood sweetheart, Rin Nahara, crossed her arms, closed her eyes, and prayed for Obito's safe return. Even Asuma Saratobi, who is always at odds with him, whispered. Bon voyage. Classmates all expressed their wishes to a greater or lesser extent. They knew that the outside world was in chaos and that the flames of war could touch them at any moment and burn them to ashes. Konoha is the only clean land in this world, and it remains as stable and harmonious as ever. The scene changed and they arrived at the village entrance. Obito's feet were like the wind, and he was moving forward rapidly as if he had thrusters installed. Hoshino Kaede stood at the door, slightly bent over and squinted his eyes, looking at Obito, who was running fast in the distance, with a little surprise. This child can actually come early. Tisk tisk, it's not easy. When the people arrived, Hoshino Kaede said jokingly, Uncle Obito, it's a relief to be able to come here so early. Obito was unconvinced, and despite panting a little, he still retorted, never, never, just this once. Good, you have ambition. Zingai Feng gave a thumbs up and encouraged. Then we'll wait and see. Let's go. This time we're going to the capital, eh? Obito called out in confusion, but it was not because he was going to the capital. He looked around and asked in confusion, Brother Hoshino, am I the only one following you? Zingai Feng nodded, no, there is another person, that kid Uiasijin. What about Shiso and Kakashi? Obito asked. Zingai Feng smiled slightly and explained, it's very dangerous to go to the country, so I didn't bring them this time. I brought you with me because you at least have some ability to protect yourself. And Yen, Zingai Feng showed a helpless look and spread his hands, there's really no other way. Since he insisted on following me, I had no choice but to agree. After saying that, he looked into the distance, raised his eyebrows and said, just in time, he's here. Uiasijin came over with a shoulder bag on his back. Master Hoshino, I'm ready. Zingai Feng forced a smile, feeling depressed. Since everyone is here, let's go. As he spoke, a fierce light flashed in his eyes. The capital is now a den of dragons and tigers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237, Warriors patrol the streets, unexpected people. Master Hoshino, have a drink of water. Master Hoshino, it's time to eat. Hoshino Kaede. Obito looked at the attentive Uiasijin, who was running back and forth, and couldn't help but complain, Brother Hoshino, is this guy missing a string in his brain? Hearing this, Zingai Feng looked at Uiasijin helplessly, be quiet, kid, this road is not safe. Uiasijin looked unconvinced, with you here, who would be so blind to come and cause trouble for us? Seeing his confident look, Zingai Feng hesitated to speak, and finally shook his head and sighed. It's true that a newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger. As he spoke, his eyes became deep, and he looked ahead and said in a low voice, Konoha is currently at war with 3 parties. And the status of the battle is unknown. This time we are going to the capital to eliminate internal instability factors, but it is not as simple as you think. Obito opened his mouth wide. He didn't know all this yet and thought it was just a simple task. Brother Zingai, what could happen in Goto? In Obito's opinion, as the capital of the Land of Fire, it is the safest place besides Konoha, and there is no possibility of invasion by foreign enemies. Uiasijin also looked at him curiously, with a question mark on his face. Zingai Feng shook his head and said mysteriously, we can only know this when we get to the capital. Right now the 4th Hokage is in Konoha and can't spare the time. In order to ensure internal stability, I am the only one who will go. According to the intelligence, the capital is now even more chaotic than outside. Hearing this, Obito was surprised, and then said worriedly, no accidents will happen, who knows? Accidents always happen so suddenly. Zingai Feng spread out his hands with an expression of confusion on his face. Then, without waiting for the two to say anything, he grabbed one in each hand, opened the space channel, and went straight in the blink of an eye. He arrived in the capital from the wilderness. Is this the capital? Why does it feel so deserted and deserted? There's no one here. Obito stretched his neck and looked around. Uiasijin said suspiciously, it's impossible that there is no one in the capital. Just as Zingai Feng was about to say something, he suddenly realized someone was approaching, and immediately took the 2 of them to hide in the shadows. Boom, boom, boom. 1 adult and 2 children watched the approaching team with bated breath as the figures approached. Obito whispered, these are actually samurai. Uiasijin asked, But aren't the samurai already desolate? Judging from their equipment and mental state, they are definitely not wandering samurai. A gleam flashed in Hoshino Kaede's eyes, and he whispered softly, "Mifune, you are also in." He sighed inaudibly, then said to the two, "This is a warrior from the Iron Country." Hearing this, Obito looked at the samurai team patrolling along the street and widened his eyes. Why are the samurai from the Iron Country here? Aren't they a permanently neutral country? Ui Chengayan sneered and said, "This behavior is no longer neutral now." Sigh. Zingai Feng shook his head and said nothing more. He looked towards the location of Daming Mansion with an inexplicable expression. "Let's go. This place is probably under control now. Let's go to Daming Mansion first. I need to get an answer to a question." Zingai Feng hid himself and led the two of them to grope and hide all the way. And finally arrived at Daming Mansion in the past. Although the defenses in Daming Prefecture were not strict, at least there were patrols from time to time. Hoshino Feng released his own perception, and the overwhelming perception spread out instantly. This is really reassuring. According to Feng Zingai's perception, the garrison of Daimyo Prefecture was empty, luring into a trap? Haha, no, this is a sign of extreme self-confidence. Zingai Feng laughed. I thought I was in charge of the overall plan, but I didn't arrange any personnel? Listening to what Hoshino Kaede said, Obito couldn't help but ask, is this where the unstable factor lies? As he spoke, he tilted his head in confusion. Daming Fu? Brother Zingai, are you sure? Myasijin kept silent on the side. As smart as he was, he already knew what Hoshino Kaede was planning, but even so, he couldn't believe it. It was unheard of that a daimyo would collude with foreign enemies to invade his own country. Zingai Feng nodded and walked in without saying a word. Obito and M looked at each other, then followed. However, the two of them did not notice that a faint light was blooming in the eyes of Feng Zingai, who was walking in front of them. The dim light rushed up to the sky like an arrow shot from a bow, and then turned into starlight that fell accurately on every corner of Daming Prefecture and disappeared into it. Daming Prefecture covers a vast area, and it took 10 minutes of walking to reach the center. Zingai Feng stopped, looked straight ahead, and looked at the three people in the inner room without saying a word. Minamoto no Mitsuiori, who was sitting at the top, seemed to sense something. He turned his head and shifted his gaze. His pupils suddenly shrank, but his strong heart made him calm down quickly. He tried hard to keep a calm expression on his face and brewed and drank tea gracefully, but his slightly trembling hands revealed his inner unrest. A person standing next to Minamoto Mitsuiori noticed his abnormality, glanced at him inadvertently with a corner of his eye. His heart skipped a beat, and his face changed slightly. How could you? Before he could finish his words, Zingai Feng interrupted him. Why am I here? Are you surprised? The man was speechless and his expression was indescribable. Perhaps he felt something was wrong when he saw Zingai Feng ignoring the depressing atmosphere. Hoshino Kaede walked straight to sit opposite Minamoto Mitsuiori, with Obito and Hamura standing on both sides of him. When you first saw me, you were panicked for a moment. I wonder how you feel now. Hoshino Feng sat in a dignified and elegant posture, and with his sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, he had the demeanor of a nobleman. There was nothing wrong with his every move, as if he had been born into an aristocratic family. Minamoto Mitsuiori suppressed his inner nervousness and panic, pretended to be calm as he took a sip of tea and said, "Nothing, I'm just surprised, just surprised." Zingai Feng raised the corner of his mouth and looked at him. Do you believe in your self-deception? After saying that, Hoshino Kaede turned his gaze and looked at the person next to him, Admiral Mifune of the Iron Country, Mr. Mifune, I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect to see you here. I don't know, do the Iron Nation's top brass know that you're here? Once a neutral country intervenes in a war, it is tantamount to smashing its golden ticket of immunity from death to pieces. Upon hearing this, Mifune's eyes moved slightly, and nothing could be seen from his expression, but his hands under the table couldn't help but clenched a little. Seeing him like this, Zingai Feng shook his head, said nothing more, and sipped his tea. Minamoto Mitsuiori's eyes flickered and his lips tightened unconsciously, even though he was smart and good at disguising himself. But when facing the strongest person in the ninja world, it is inevitable to feel a little timid. Time seemed to stand still. No one spoke in the room except for the sound of Hoshino Kaede sipping tea. They all seemed very calm. As expected of those in power, their state of mind is extraordinary. Zingai Feng suddenly chuckled and said meaningfully. Chapter 238. This is the first time we meet. When Mount Tai collapses in front of you, you remain calm. This is the state of mind that a person in a high position should have. Hoshino Kaede's face was calm, and his sharp eyes were like the North Star in the dark night, clear and bright. An impossible to ignore a strong sense of oppression suddenly rushed towards the two of them, making their breathing stop for a moment, but then the subject suddenly changed, and his tone suddenly became low, as if the king of the tribe was provoked and was about to fly into a rage. But, Minamoto no Mitsui Aori, as smart as you are, it is not difficult for you to figure out the current situation in the ninja world. I once said that the corrupt system will eventually be eliminated, but now you don't seem to have listened to me. You have been patient until now. So why don't you open the door and talk? Zingai Feng leaned forward, crossed his hands and supported the table, and a powerful aura suddenly spread out. In terms of being in power alone, Hoshino Kaede has been in power for much longer than Minamoto Mitsui Aori. Both his own methods and strategies are superior to his. Faced with such aggressive words, Minamoto Mitsui Aori chuckled. His laugh was so indifferent, as if he was the winner at the moment. That laughter contained all kinds of emotions: sadness, helplessness, failure, loneliness, and a little bit of regret. I originally thought that no matter how strong Konoha was, it would not be able to withstand the full force of the three kingdoms. I thought my plan was perfect, and no one could guess that I was the one behind it, Minamoto Mitsui Aori narrated calmly, as if while this had nothing to do with him. Zingai Feng narrowed his eyes and said word by word, "Nothing in this world is perfect. You can't control the future direction of everyone. Even I wouldn't dare to make such a promise." Hearing this, Minamoto Mitsui Aori smiled nonchalantly. "Maybe you won, and everything you say is reasonable. The ninja world respects the strong. If you lose, you lose. Whatever you say is the truth." Although he said it so easily, Hoshino Feng knew everything about the person in front of him and saw through the unwillingness and resentment hidden in his heart. People who think they are great never think they are wrong, and never think there is anything wrong with themselves. Looking at the unwilling look in his eyes, Zingai Feng suddenly lost the desire to continue chatting, shook his head, and finally asked a question. "Your father, did you kill him?" Yuan Guangle was stunned for a moment, then his face showed no emotion at all, and he said, "I killed him. That old guy was too annoying and blocked my plan." "Really?" Zingai Feng murmured softly, then stretched out his hand and gently shook it. The next moment, Minamoto Mitsui Aori's face was distorted, beads of cold sweat dripped from his forehead, and his face turned pale in an instant. Like a dead person, Mifune stood up in panic and took a step back, fear in his eyes. "So, you also have a heart?" Hoshino Feng looked at Minamoto Mitsui Aori's painful face and said calmly, then he clenched it tighter again. At this time, Minamoto Mitsui Aori was breathing rapidly, his face turned red, and death was enveloping him little by little. But Zingai Feng ignored all this and turned his head to look at Mifune. "All the samurai in the capital should be withdrawn. Is there any problem?" Cold sweat oozed from Mifune's forehead, and he nodded quickly. Yes. He didn't dare to say another word. He had just thought about taking action, but the fear of death was surging in his heart as if telling him, "If you dare to do it, you will die." Hoshino Kaede nodded. "Go ahead. The Iron Country will be incorporated into Konoha after the war." Mifune raised his head suddenly, but when he met those deep eyes, he lowered his head again, bent over and left here. Watching Mifune leave, Hoshino Kaede did not sympathize with him. They were all adults and had to bear the consequences themselves. Ho. A strange cry continued to sound. Zingai Feng saw the uncomfortable look on Minamoto Mitsui's face from the corner of his eye and slapped his head. "I almost forgot about you. Seeing that you are in so much pain, I will help you." Zingai Feng smiled kindly and clenched his hands tightly. Bang! A dull sound was heard inside Minamoto Mitsui Aori's body. It was obvious that his heart had exploded. Those eyes that were full of calculations suddenly lost their color and became dim, and the body fell straight backwards. Seeing this scene, Obito's scalp tingled and a chill rose up on his back. He swallowed and looked at Hoshino Kaede timidly. "He's dead just like that?" Obito asked weakly. Zingai Feng raised his eyebrows. "What else? You want to cut him into pieces?" "I don't have the time to play cat and mouse with him. If you have the ability to win, why would you resort to conspiracy and intrigue?" Hoshino Kaede spoke with confidence and didn't think there was any problem at all. After saying this, he suddenly froze for a moment, thinking deeply. "It seems, I am also a pretentious person." The corner of Zingai Feng's mouth twitched, and he shook his head vigorously to clear the distracting thoughts from his mind. He coughed lightly and looked at Obito. "You go outside the city to fire a flare, and then let the Ambu take over the capital." Obito nodded without thinking, and without asking any questions that would lower his IQ, he ran out immediately after Hoshino Feng finished the arrangement. He didn't care that someone had died here. He sat quietly on the tatami, closed his eyes and rested, as if there was something he had not done yet. Myasian suppressed his physical discomfort and stiffly added water for Hoshino Kaede. He then waited on the side, looking down at the table, not daring to look up at the corpse beside him. Ha, Yan, you are a little timid. It's just a corpse. Zingai Feng burst into laughter. Yan laughed twice, still lowering his head and not daring to look. Hoshino Feng shrugged, blew on the hot tea, took a sip, put it on the table, tapped the table lightly with his fingers. An unfathomable smile appeared on his face, and he spoke to himself. I have sealed off this damning mansion. Don't even think about getting out. You've been hiding from me for so long. Why don't you come out and see me? These confusing words left Myasian completely bewildered and confused. Hoshino Feng drank his tea calmly, not in a hurry at all. The net had been set, and even if the six-path sage came, he would have to kneel. Half a quarter of an hour passed, and there was still no movement. Zingai Feng curled his lips and threatened casually, if you don't come out, I will go directly to the moon and kill Otsutsuki Kaguya. As soon as these words were spoken, the situation suddenly became different. At some point, a person appeared opposite Zingai Feng. Myasian's eyes almost popped out of his head. And he pointed at him with trembling fingers. What the hell? How did you show up? He swore that he had definitely not moved his eyes away just now. In just a blink of an eye, the person suddenly appeared, which was simply terrifying. In response, Zingai Feng smiled and said, if I don't push you, I really won't see you. This should be the first time we meet. Otsutsuki Black Zetsu. Chapter 239, Capital. If only the name was mentioned, Black Zetsu would not react so greatly. After all, there is no wall that is impenetrable, and Uchiha Madara was in Konoha, so it was not strange to learn the name from him. But even knowing his real last name is a bit problematic, he dared to keep his existence secret, but few people knew about it. Do you really think he hid it for 1,000 years in vain? No one knew his real identity, but now, someone directly pointed out his identity. Otsutsuki Black Zetsu looked at him solemnly. The man who was hailed as the new god of the ninja world. How did you know that? There's no way my last name could be exposed. Hearing such confident words, Zingai Feng laughed and shook his head, pointing to the sky. Man acts, God sees. Besides, with my strength, the ninja world cannot hide my secrets at all, not even the awakened Shiandeo. Hoshino Kaede's tone was very arrogant, but Black Zetsu did not refute. Instead, he looked thoughtful and ugly. Looking at the impatient Black Zetsu, Zingai Feng said directly, it was you who instigated the Three Kingdoms War this time. Then he looked at Minamoto no Mitsuiori's body. He is still cooperating with him, thinking of cooperating from inside and outside to slow down Konoha's pace. Black Zetsu came to his senses, looked around with a serious brow, and kept changing his strategies in his mind, trying to find a way to escape. Seeing that Black Zetsu did not respond, Hoshino Kaede saw his little movements and couldn't help but said, don't waste your time. Even if one of the Otsutsuki dies indirectly in my hands, how can you escape? Hoshino Kaede's words made Black Zetsu's heart sink, and his mood fell to the bottom. He used to be very smart, but this time he was really out of ideas. She took a deep breath, calmed herself down, and answered his question. It's unfair to say I'm inciting them. The three countries don't need me to do this at all. I just need to do a little bit to give them a little stimulation. As for this Yuan Guanglei's scheme was just a little bit short of mine, but unfortunately it failed in the end. He wanted to resist the general trend with his own body, and now he deserves to die. Being in a desperate situation, Black Zetsu actually relaxed and spoke in a light tone. Tisk, if your strength could match your brains, that would be really scary. Hoshino Feng sighed. Planning for 1,000 years, enduring for 1,000 years, just to rescue Kaguya Otsutsuki. Just for this filial piety, Black Zetsu is the strongest in the ninja world, and his heart is commendable. After hearing this, Black Zetsu sighed and said, unfortunately, there are no ifs and no daydreams in the world. That's right. Zingai Feng nodded and stood up. That's enough for our chat. I should go back now. The sudden departure made Heiju stunned. After he reacted, he asked doubtfully, you won't kill me? This sentence made Zingai Feng, who had just stepped out of the door, pause. He turned sideways and raised the corner of his mouth. Why should I kill you? Do you really want to die? As he spoke, he suddenly smiled. Come to think of it, in a sense, I should thank you. Konoha wanted to fight this war, but couldn't find a reason. Now, the reason has been delivered to our door, which can be of great help to Konoha. After saying that, Zingai Feng walked straight out without any hesitation. Black Zetsu sat there for a long time, and after a moment his eyes became firm again. Whether you are kind-hearted or not, I must rescue my mother." As soon as these words came out, Black Zetsu immediately felt troubled. He stared at the back of Zingai Feng as he left, muttering, "But, even if my mother comes out, can she beat him?" All the samurai in the capital were evacuated, and Obito released a signal flare, allowing the Anbu to take over the security of the city. Hoshino Kaede walked out of the daimyo's mansion and immediately reunited with Obito. "Brother Hoshino?" The Anbu found these people in a dungeon. When Obito saw Kaede Hoshino, he immediately pointed at the people being guarded in the distance and said. Hearing this, Zingai Feng followed his gaze and asked, "Do you know his identity?" "We have already found out. They are all people who are against the daimyo. Some of them have a close ties with Konoha," Obito said truthfully. Hoshino Kaede nodded and said to the Anbu captain, "Check these people carefully. If the situation is true, let them go. People in the capital are losing their morale and need someone to carry the load. They are a good choice." Upon hearing this, the Anbu captain nodded immediately. "I understand. I'm sure Tsukumo has already told you what to do about the capital. Remember to capture all those nobles and don't let anyone escape." After saying a few words, Feng Hoshino grabbed the two of them and returned directly to Konoha through the space channel. With the end of the affairs of the capital and the death of the daimyo, it also marked the end of the old era and the demise of the daimyo system. Thanks to the letter sent by Minamoto no Mitsuai Aori, Konoha found a way out and the play could proceed smoothly. After the war is over, there will only be Konoha in the land of fire, without any daimyo, and all power will fall into the hands of Konoha. After returning to Konoha, Kaede Hoshino went to the Hokage's residence alone and found Tsukumo. At this moment, he was leaning over to survey the situation. Looking tired, and it seemed that he had not rested for several days. "Tsukumo, the war ahead is very stable, you don't need to fight so hard." Hoshino Kaede looked at Tsukumo and said with a frown without even looking up. Shumeo said, "We can't let our guard down even if we maintain stability." Seeing this, Zingai Feng didn't know what to say, so he nodded and reported the situation in the capital. "The interior of the fire country has been cleared, and now it all depends on the front battlefield. The Anbu are already taking over. It might take some time." Tsukumo nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work, third generation. If you hadn't responded in advance, Konoha would have suffered a great loss." "It's nothing." Zingai Feng waved his hand. "Ants can't shake elephants. Even if the daimyo interferes, it will only delay some time. He can't decide the basic big picture." Those who followed him were all greedy for the existing power. Apart from being rich, there was nothing remarkable about them. Tsukumo did not comment and immediately changed the subject. "How long do you think this war will take?" After pondering for a moment, Zingai Feng estimated, "If it's slow, it will take 3 or 4 years. If it's fast, it will only take 1 or 2 years, but the result will not change." Seeing the Sandai so confident, Tsukumo let out a breath, as if a huge stone in his heart had been lifted. "Is that so? Then let's try to finish it as soon as possible. It won't be good if too many people die." Zingai Feng could guess what Tsukumo was worried about, and comforted him. "Relax, the 3 countries are going all out and assembling a large army, and the materials they consume are astronomical. I guess the public resentment in their country is already boiling, but it's not yet at the point of an explosion. In another year, they will be the ones who are anxious, not us." Hoshino Kaede leaned back in his chair and analyzed with examples. Chapter 240 Chakra Cannon, Fire Suppression. "You always have a plan in mind, as if everything in the world is within your expectations," Shuameo said with a smile. Zingai Feng shook his head. "Predict? I'm not a god. Besides, in my opinion, even a god can't accurately grasp the direction of fate." Upon hearing this, Shumeo seemed to be thinking about something. Then he stood up and walked to the window, looking at the blue sky. His expression became firm. "But I hope that everything will go as expected. This war is a war that will determine the future. There can be no mistakes." Hoshino Kaede smiled and said firmly, "Tsukumo, I have great confidence in them." "I hope so," Tsukumo said. While the 2 generations of Hokage were talking, a fierce clash was taking place on the front line of the hidden cloud village thousands of miles away inside the Konoha tent. Narashikachi stroked his mustache, looked at the temporarily drawn map of the front line Kumagakure location, and fell into deep thought. The location of Unine is easy to defend but difficult to attack, and it occupies an advantageous terrain, commanding the enemy from a high position. If we forcefully attack, we will surely suffer heavy casualties. Thinking of this, Luya couldn't help but feel a headache. He sighed repeatedly and complained to himself, "Why should I agree to the 3rd generation? It's obviously not my turn to take charge." As he was talking, He couldn't help but recall the pleading expression on Feng Xingai's face when he came to his house. I was so excited at the time, and since this was a war that would determine the future of Konoha, I nodded and agreed without even thinking. Thinking back on it now, I suddenly feel a toothache. Senior Lu Yi, it's too late to regret now. Inside the tent, Jiraiya, who was appointed as the commander-in-chief in the battle against Kumagakure, laughed and joked. Alice, Lu Yi's face became even more bitter after hearing this, and then he waved his hand. Forget it, since we are here, let's make the best of it. Let's deal with U9 first. When it comes to business, Jiraiya's playful smile suddenly stopped, and he nodded seriously, saying, we have fought 3 games with Kumagakure. Although our overall strength is stronger, the other side has more people, plus, we rely on natural defenses and suffer a lot of losses. We can't go on like this. Nara nods slightly and continues, the 4th Hokage's offensive is very strong. It's obvious that he wants to end the battle quickly. All the countries surrounding the Land of Thunder were conquered by them with thunder and lightning, and turned into rear supply lines. Now U9 has a strong army and no shortage of supplies. U9's morale is at its peak. Jiraiya's expression was serious. This was not good news. They don't have the advantage in numbers, and if they try to defend, they will be eaten up bit by bit sooner or later and eventually defeated. The U9 people are warlike by nature and have extensive combat experience. They are exposed to bad weather all year round, which prevents their minds from being easily shaken for a moment. Both Shukachi and Jiraiya were helpless just when the situation reached a stalemate. Namake's Minato said, I remember when we came here, the village prepared a chakra cannon for us. Lu Yi's eyes suddenly lit up, and he slapped his thigh and said in surprise, yes, I almost forgot about this. This is a powerful weapon. After saying that, Jiraiya frowned and questioned, is this thing really useful? Don't let me down. Hearing this, Lu Yi patted his chest and assured, you may not know this, but when Orochimaru developed this thing, it was originally for war defense. I've seen a sample before, and it was powerful enough to rival a B-rank ninjutsu. After hearing this, Jiraiya opened his mouth in shock and exclaimed, is this true? Lu Yi smiled mysteriously and a plan formed in his mind, one that revolved around the chakra cannon. Just wait and see. With it, the difference in numbers won't be a big concern. The rest depends on you two, master and disciple. I'll leave the wreckage to you. After saying that, Lu Yi wrote quickly, writing down all his thoughts and then put together a plan. 2 days later, it was a sunny day. A large number of Konoha ninjas left the camp, leaving only peripheral ninjas to confuse the opponent. The remaining ninjas were divided into several batches, with each few people carrying a chakra cannon and approaching the hidden cloud camp. After calculations by Konoha's think tank Nara Shukachi, the distance between the two camps was calculated, and combined with the wind direction, the best position for the hypothetical cannon was obtained. An hour later, they arrived at the expected location. Nara Shukachi observed the surroundings, stretched out his hand and gestured for a while, and finally took a breath and ordered immediately, quick! Set up the cannon. Race against time. The cloud-hidden village scouts will soon notice something unusual, so we must speed up. Narashika said this as he walked back and forth around the area, observing the progress and receiving reports from scouts from time to time. Click, click, ding ding dong dong. The sound of parts assembly continued to ring out, and Narashikachi's heart beat fast. His hands clenched tightly, and his palms were sweaty. They are racing against time and cannot make any mistakes at any stage. Fortunately, Yunan did not notice anything unusual. In the chakra cannons were all set up. The gun body is silver wide and made of special material. It is equipped with a device for absorbing chakra, which can form chakra shells through compression. Not only that, the shells fired by the cannon can also change their properties. Although its power is not as strong as the tailed beast ball, it is more than enough to deal with large-scale battles. After all, the opponents are flesh and blood and do not have strong recovery abilities. Once hit, it will not be torn into pieces, but at least a hole will be made in it. Looking at the rows of chakra cannons emitting a silver-white luster, Narashikachi immediately gave an impatient order, load the shells, charge and aim. At the command, hundreds of ninjas immediately transferred chakra into the devices. Chakra continued to be delivered. The value on the indicator continued to rise. Narashikachi silently counted 3 numbers, and then when he saw that he had almost accumulated enough energy, he shouted, fire, shhhhhhhhh. At that moment, the sky was suddenly covered with a layer of colorful paintings, which was very beautiful. Narashikachi raised the corner of his mouth slightly, looked at the brilliant colors in the sky, and murmured, this is a great gift from Konoha, you must enjoy it. As soon as he finished speaking, the chakra shell that had climbed up into the sky suddenly fell down at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, in the Union camp, countless Union looked up at the sky. Attracted by the gorgeous sky, so beautiful, some of the younger ninja sighed. The other stable ninjas were a little confused. Why is the weather like this here? The sudden appearance of brilliant colors in the sky was reported to the Raikage. He walked out of the tent and looked at the sky with a determined face, but after just one glance, his expression suddenly changed. His mouth was faster than his brain, and he shouted, "Everyone! Evacuate here!" The Union present were stunned and confused, but their bodies subconsciously followed the command and moved. However, in this brief moment of distraction, the scroll in the sky fell, and in the blink of an eye, overwhelming shells fell into the Union camp. Chapter 241 Raikage vs Jiraiya, Sage Mode. Like thunderclaps from the blue sky. Boom, 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 hundreds of shells landed one after another in an instant, and the concentrated chakra inside exploded instantly, causing waves of air. The Union camp was bombarded by artillery fire. People were looking up at the sky in the last second, and they were running away with their heads in their hands. In the next second, the falling shells smashed into the tent, tearing it to pieces with the enormous force, destroying the person sleeping inside as well, and leaving painlessly without a scream. The Raikage looked at the devastated camp, his eyes bloodshot, and roared to the sky, ah. Although he didn't know what weapon it was, he knew that no one except Konoha had such a weapon. But now, the Raikage's impotent rage could not change anything, and the chakra shells still fell to the ground like a downpour. Seeing this, the Raikage gritted his teeth and roared, "Everyone, evacuate," following the order from the backbone. The Union, who had been in a panic just now, evacuated quickly and orderly as if they had received some instructions in their heads. Under the heavy artillery fire, the Union army retreated to the rear after making sure it was safe. The Raikage looked back at the camp. After several rounds of artillery fire, the camp was already in ruins. Looking from a distance, all you can see is a ruin, with no sign that it was once the camp where they lived. Next to the Raikage, the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee had chakra surging all over his body, and a chakra cult attached to his body. In the situation just now, Killer Bee directly entered the tailed beast state to cover the others. Because of this, the casualties were reduced by half. "Brother, this weapon can't threaten us. Even elite Jonin can avoid it, but it is a great threat to mid-level Jonin and special Jonin." Veins bulged on the Raikage's forehead and his face was gloomy. It was obvious that he was extremely angry at the moment and had no place to vent. He suppressed his anger and asked, "What are the casualties?" Kirabi heard this inside. "According to the reports from each team, we lost over 1,000 of the 10,000 ninjas we brought, and there are thousands of injured. Plus, we fought a few battles with Konoha a few days ago, and now 1/3 of them have lost their combat effectiveness." Hearing these numbers, the Raikage clenched his fists tightly, and then punched a tree nearby that was so big that it took 3 people to hug it. Bang! The punch was like a tiger descending from the mountain, piercing through the heart of the tree with one punch. And faint flashes of lightning could be seen inside. "Bastard!" the Raikage yelled angrily. Killer Bee originally wanted to step forward to persuade them, but then he paused. His powerful perception in tailed beast mode detected that a large number of people were approaching not far away. Suddenly, he shouted, "Brother! The people from Konoha are rushing over." Hearing this, the Raikage showed no fear on his face. Instead, he turned his anger into motivation. "Come at the right time. I have nowhere to vent my anger, so I'll use them to vent it." Then, he strode forward with his head held high and ordered, "Everyone, prepare for battle." The hidden cloud village, which was attacked suddenly, was filled with anger at the moment, and the arrival of Konoha just ignited this anger. The atmosphere on both sides was full of tension. Not only the hidden cloud village, but also Konoha's morale was greatly boosted. Both sides are located in a hilly area with flat terrain, which is very suitable for deploying troops for large-scale combat. Union occupies a high point and is in a commanding position. After a moment, dense crowds of figures appeared from both sides. If viewed from a distance, they looked like black dots. Konoha's commander-in-chief Jiraiya naturally stood at the front of the troops, looking at the furious-looking Raikage high up in the sky, and couldn't help but shout with a smile, "Raikage, do you like my gift?" This sentence was not said in a deliberately low voice, but was deliberately spoken loudly. The previous round of artillery fire directly caused the Union to lose all their weapons and flee in a panic, which severely damaged the morale of the Union. When Jiraiya found out, he immediately burst into laughter, and all the frustration he had been feeling for the past few days was released at that moment. The Raikage snorted coldly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Opportunistic weapons cannot determine the direction of the war. Jiraiya smiled calmly, as if he didn't hear what he said, and just shrugged. There is no point in saying more. We still have to wait and see what the final outcome will be. The commanders on both sides stopped talking at the same time, and when they looked into each other's eyes, they could vaguely feel an invisible confrontation. The next second, Jiraiya and the Raikage said in unison, "Jiraiya, come fight, Raikage. Come fight." As soon as the words fell, the two men leaped up and rushed towards each other. Then the ninjas behind him rushed towards each other as if they had received a signal. The sound was so powerful that the earth it stepped on shook. An unprecedented melee began suddenly. Ninjutsu were flying all over the sky, various moves emerged one after another, and the ninjas on both sides fought back and forth. More than 10,000 ninjas burst out with surging momentum and chakra, and charged together in a mighty force as commanders. Jiraiya and the Raikage's battle was even more intense. The mere presence of both sides at the level of Kage made it impossible for others to intervene. Jiraiya stared at the Raikage intently, took a deep breath, and formed seals with his hands. In an instant, Jiraiya's appearance changed slightly. Eyeshadow appeared on his face, and his aura suddenly rose. The Raikage's heart sank. "Did you use a secret technique?" Hearing this, Jiraiya's mouth corners slightly raised, grinning and said, "Secret techniques cannot reach this level. The magic of Myaboku Mountain has been passed down for a long time, and as a contractor of Myaboku Mountain, Jiraiya is naturally qualified to learn it. Unlike Jiraiya's flawed magic in the original work, the current Jiraiya has mastered the Myaboku Mountain magic under the guidance of Kid Hoshino. At this time, Jiraiya's ninjutsu, tai, and genjutsu had been greatly improved. His physical fitness, which had originally lagged behind that of the Raikage, had been increased several times to the same level as the Raikage. The powerful aura emanating from his body made the Raikage extremely solemn. This was the first time that Jiraiya put his magic into practice. After adapting to this new power, Jiraiya grinned and his confidence soared. Whoosh! Jiraiya took a step forward, and his body disappeared in an instant as if he had performed the teleportation technique. The Raikage immediately entered the lightning chakra mode. Lightning raged, and the battle between the two sides entered a white-hot stage. In an instant, war will not let you test yourself. You must use all your strength. After all, no one wants to fail in the war due to momentary negligence. Jiraiya and the Raikage fought fiercely, using both fists and feet. They were like two meteors, constantly changing on the field. The powerful airflow generated by the attack made the surrounding area a mess. After one round, both sides separated briefly. Jiraiya looked at the Raikage, who was at ease, and a drop of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Such physical fitness is worthy of being the Raikage. Even if I use Sage Mode, I can only barely resist. His strength is beyond my imagination. It will be too difficult to defeat him in a short period of time. For now, we can only hold him back and hope that Minato's situation will be over as soon as possible. Chapter 242, Fierce Fight. Delay. Kumaga-cure's tenacity. Jiraiya thought so in his heart, took a deep breath, and attacked the Raikage again. But compared to the previous attack, he was obviously holding back some strength, constantly circling around the Raikage without using his full strength. A light flashed in the eyes of the Raikage, and he sneered, "Want to delay time?" Jiraiya moved his body to the side to avoid the Raikage's surging fist. He did not answer, but retreated to a distance to keep some distance. Then, he clasped his hands together, puffed up his chest, and spat out a large amount of frog oil from his mouth. The sticky frog oil continued to flow out, and the Raikage easily dodged it, but after a moment he frowned and looked around. Frog oil was everywhere, even on the trees. Adding to the flammable nature of the wood, the Raikage immediately thought to himself, "Oops." Sure enough, in the next second, Jiraiya circulated his chakra and quickly formed seals with his hands, leaving an afterimage, which shows how fast he was. In just a few seconds, the technique was completed. Jiraiya raised his lips and shouted, "Fire style? Fire dragon flame bullet!" As soon as he finished speaking, 3 lifelike fire dragons appeared in the blink of an eye, with their fangs bared and claws dancing, making it difficult to tell whether they were real or fake. As Jiraiya thought about it, 3 fire dragons leaped up and rushed to the left and right and behind of the Raikage. Boom! When the frog oil came into contact with the open flame, it instantly ignited and the temperature suddenly rose. According to Jiraiya's design, all the surrounding woods were set on fire, forming a circle of encirclement. "Are you so confident that your disciple can defeat Killer Bee?" The Raikage narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice. At this moment, not only the Raikage, but even Jiraiya had no way out. "If you want to force your way in, you will have to endure the high temperature of the fire-style ninjutsu launched by a Kage-level strongman." Even if the Raikage, who was famous for his physical skills, could get through one, There were trees everywhere and the flames were spreading at an incredible speed. It can be said that if the Raikage wants to escape, he must face the high temperature and burn his body. Weighing the pros and cons, Jiraiya was almost certain that the Raikage would not dare to force his way in. Even if he did, his own path would be blocked. The fire was burning around them, and the light reflected Jiraiya's face. He grinned. I believe him, HMPH, then I'll deal with you first. The Raikage threw a powerful punch, his chakra running wildly, attacking Jiraiya like lightning. Boom, boom, boom. In the fire, the two started their second fierce fight. As the temperature continued to rise, Jiraiya was already sweating profusely and his exposed skin was already red. If it continued, he would definitely be burned, but now there was no choice. Jiraiya's eyes were determined, and he rushed towards the Raikage without hesitation. The two men fought fiercely and violently, and the surroundings were destroyed. The other end at this moment is more elegant and the destructive power is very small, unlike Jiraiya and the Raikage who engage in close combat. Namikaze Minato is an agile ninja with maximum agility. His opponent is the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee, a tough enemy. Killer Bee was furious at this time, and looked at Minato. Namikaze with unfriendly eyes, is all you can do is hide. Hearing this, Minato smiled and said, what else? Killer Bee gritted his teeth. After several rounds of fighting, he didn't even touch the corner of the other person's clothes. He felt really aggrieved. Suddenly, his sullen expression softened, and he smiled and said, although I can't touch you, it's impossible for you to defeat me. As he said this, he looked towards the Raikage, his mouth curled up. Although the three ninjas are strong, they are still a little bit inferior to my eldest brother. If you and I continue to waste time here, it won't be us, Union, who will fail in the end. Minato clenched the flying thunder god Kunai and glanced at his teacher's position. He had to admit what Killer Bee said, that the advantage was not on Konoha's side at the moment. Even though the previous round of artillery fire had caused serious damage to Union, the key figures had not been dealt with. The Raikage is different from ordinary cages. No one can match his lightning release. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is known as the doctor of the ninja world, is inferior to him in lightning release. What's more, the unique ninjutsu of the Hidden Cloud sect made winning several levels more difficult. Damn it. I have no choice but to take the initiative. Minato Namikaze's eyes flashed and he quickly made an attack plan in his mind. The tailed beast coat has a high defensive power. It needs a powerful ninjutsu to destroy it. That ninjutsu is the only one I can use. Minato's eyes were determined. He reached out and touched the forward protector. He took a deep breath and his eyes suddenly became sharp. Bring it on. The Sand Village has changed drastically overnight since the last time the third Kazekage had a secret meeting with Hoshino Kaede and reached a verbal agreement on the spot. Opening up all trade and exempting commercial taxes is a great convenience. With the joint efforts of the third Kazekage and Shirao, the atmosphere of hatred towards Konoha in the village has suddenly changed in recent days, and people who are friendly to Konoha have tacitly allowed to promote the Land of Fire. All of this was seen by Feng Ying. After the outbreak of the Third World War, the Kazekage became extremely nervous, fearing that he would suddenly receive news of Konoha's defeat. Although he knew in his heart that this was impossible, but maybe. In the Kazekage building, the third Kazekage came to the rooftop, leaned against the fence, and looked into the distance, which was the direction where Konoha was fighting against Kumagakure. I don't know what the battle situation is now. Feng Ying's face was full of worry, and his nervous heart prompted him to pace back and forth. To be fair, he was the one who least wanted Konoha to lose. The Sand Village is now bound to Konoha and they share a common destiny. If the big brother falls, the final outcome of the Sand Village, the younger brother, will not be much better. Just when they were worried, a figure suddenly appeared and said, report to Master Kazekage. According to the scouts ahead, Kumagakure and Konoha are in a stalemate, and Konoha used unknown weapons to bomb the Kumagakure camp. The two sides are currently engaged in a fierce battle, and the spies cannot get any closer to the specific situation. Hearing this, Feng Ying stepped forward quickly, grabbed the Anbu's collar, and asked in a deep voice, is the information reliable? The Anbu nodded. It's reliable. Multiple spies said so. After saying this, Feng Ying exhaled a breath, and the whole person was relieved. It's okay. It's not bad. It's good to be in a stalemate. Judging from the current situation, Kumagakure has dispatched tens of thousands of ninjas, while Konoha only has 5,000 with twice as many troops as the other two. The advantage is obvious. He was very worried at first, but now, haha, he finally felt relieved. Got it. The Kazekage waved his hand and let the Anbu leave. At this time, Elder Chiao came over and saw Feng Ying's expression. He immediately asked in confusion, why are you so happy, Master Feng Ying? It's Elder Chiao, The Kazakage nodded at Chiyo when he saw her, and then said, I just learned that Konoha and Kumagakure are in a stalemate, and even suffered a great loss. Really? Chiyo's expression changed when she heard that, and then she sighed. Konoha is really amazing. They can still stabilize the situation despite such a huge gap. The quality of their ninjas is definitely not low. The Kazakage nodded slightly, agreeing deeply that if the Sand Ninjas were to fight against Konoha, they would probably be defeated within a few days. Chapter 243, Discussion in the Sand, Nine Tails to Hidden Cloud. On the balcony, Kazakage and Chiyo looked into the distance, extremely concerned about the news of Konoha, and stood there for several hours. Those who can become the Wind Shadow are not shams, but have real skills and good vision. The Third Ninja World War will determine the fate of Konoha. Success or failure will depend on this time. Unlike the previous two wars, in which all they had to do was to repel the enemy, this time if Konoha wanted to decide the outcome of the war in one battle, they had to severely damage Kumagakure, Iwagakure and Mistgakure, or kill any of the three Kage. As long as one of the goals is achieved, it will be enough to gradually tip the scales of victory towards Konoha. You know, I once resisted the unification of the ninja world from the bottom of my heart. I felt that if that happened, the Sand Village would have no future. The Kazakage stood on the rooftop platform, his robe rustling in the strong wind. He looked down at the Sand Village below, his tone full of emotion. Looking at the Sand Village where vitality was gradually awakening, the Kazakage couldn't help but say with a smile, but now, I have changed my mind. Feng Ying looked at Chiyo and smiled. Chiyo nodded in agreement. Yes, since the Sand Village was opened without restrictions, a large number of caravans have poured in, making this barren land of Sand Village bustling with people. The villagers' resistance gradually disappeared, and they began to smile from the bottom of their hearts. The village has regained its vitality. After the Kazakage signed a verbal agreement, not only the Sand Village opened the door widely, but also Konoha, except for some technologies that need to be kept secret. All other technologies are open to the Sand Ninjas. Of course, Konoha cannot suffer any loss, as all of these require the Sand Ninjas to exchange for resources or money. Konoha is not only strong in ninjas, but also in many aspects. I heard that Konoha is planning to set up ordinary schools so that children of civilians can also go to school. Moreover, many years ago, a comprehensive set of policies and facilities for people's livelihood were initially formulated. These 2 points are something that other big country villages cannot catch up with. Feng Ying was more and more amazed as he spoke. If these policies were implemented in other villages, one would probably only hear of them but not see them in person, and one could only find traces of them in memory. It can be said that none of the above policies can be replicated, as there are too many things to consider due to various factors, including resources, manpower, financial resources, etc. It is impossible for the Sand Village to achieve this. Everything Konoha does has characteristics that transcend its time. Chiyo's eyes flickered. The longer you live, the more you understand. There's news that the Fire Country daimyo died, and even the daimyo's mansion was burned down. The whereabouts of all the side branches are unknown. Konoha is now truly free of constraints. Konoha has the final say in the Land of Fire. Hearing this, the Kazakage smiled bitterly, a helpless expression on his face, and said, after all, this is Konoha. With that person in charge, even the daimyo can't stop the momentum of its rise. Unfortunately, my Sand Village can only live by the will of others. The daimyo is still on guard against the Sand Village. The supplies and food provided are barely enough to keep people fed and clothed. At this point, Feng Ying couldn't help but clench his fists. If it weren't for the fact that his lifeline was in the hands of someone else, Feng Ying would have turned the table over and quit. The 5 major ninja villages in the ninja world are respected and feared by the 5 major countries. The strength of the ninja is obvious to all. For those who are strong, destroying a medium-sized country is not a problem. Because of this, the daimyo was very wary of ninjas and was unwilling to see the ninja village grow stronger, so the supplies sent down each time were pitifully small. Even in Konoha, the economic lifeline was previously controlled by the political families in the capital. Not to mention the other villages, each one is worse than the other. If Konoha was not so powerful at the moment, how could Kumagakure, Kirigakure, and Iwagakure expand their ninja force in a short period of time? Behind them are the materials and manpower provided by the daimyo. Seeing the Kazakage unwilling to give in, Chiyo pinched her knuckles until they turned white, and consoled him, don't worry, the Sand Ninja will not be constrained in the future. Konoha's technology and good seeds are enough to keep the people of Sand Village going until the end of the war. As long as the war ends. Chiyo paused, a cold light flashed in her eyes. and murderous intent gradually rose. The daimyo can disappear. Feng Ying couldn't help but be moved when he heard this, and his heart was trembling with fear. He thought to himself, as expected of Elder Kaede, he is really cruel, but that suits me just fine. Thinking of this, Feng Ying felt much more relaxed and a faint smile appeared on his face. Look forward to that day, it won't be too long. A few days later, the Land of Fire, Iwagakure camp inside the tent. After receiving the news from Kumagakure, Inoki cursed in a low voice, "They are all a bunch of rubbish. That Raikage guy speaks better than he sings. The number of his ninjas is twice that of Konoha, but he still can't defeat Konoha." Receiving this kind of news was very bad for them. The longer the war dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. A quick victory was what they wanted. Now that Kumagakure is being held back, they can only rely on Iwagakure and Kurigakure. Wang-tu heard his father's words and immediately said, "Father, we can't be careless. We must admit that the strength of Kumagakure is second only to Konoha. Now that they are being held back, it shows the strength of Konoha." Hearing this, Inoki sighed and said, "Of course I know, but this will put a lot more pressure on us." The Raikage was held back by Jiraiya, and his disciple defeated the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. Once there is a stalemate, the situation will be very unfavorable for us. What? Wang-tu was shocked. Even Eight-Tails was defeated. How? How is this possible? That's the tailed beast second only to the Nine-Tails, not to mention it's a perfect Jinchuriki. There's no way it could be defeated. Hearing Wang-tu's disbelief and astonishment, Inoki shook his head and said, "Nothing is impossible. According to intelligence, Namikaze Minato has entered a peculiar mode that can greatly enhance his own abilities, but even so, we won't be defeated." Wang-tu still couldn't believe it. "Alice, the key is that the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is also here," Inoki said with a wry smile. After hearing this, Wang-tu fell silent instantly. Seeing this, Inoki coughed lightly and changed the subject. "Let's not talk about this. Things are a foregone conclusion. No matter how much you think about it, you can't change anything. If we can't rely on Union, then we have to rely on ourselves. We are facing two great bloodline limit families, the Uchiha and Hyuga. They are very difficult to deal with and we must not underestimate them." The commander is Tsunade. At this point, Inoki frowned. It seemed like their chances of winning were not high with two major bloodline limit families and Tsunade, the medical genius. Do they really have a chance of winning? Just as Inoki was a little confused, a scout came to report, "Lord Tsuchikage, Konoha is under attack." As soon as he finished speaking, Inoki instantly woke up from his confusion and headed over immediately, with Huangta following closely behind him. "You came so quickly. Are you stimulated?" "No matter what, since they want to fight, we will fight them to the end." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244. 6 months later, Orochimaru returns to Konoha. Just as the war broke out between Iwagakure and Konoha, Konoha was completely quiet. Apart from a little helplessness, there was only the laughter of the villagers in the Hokage's residence. Tsukumo was complaining to Hoshino Kaede at this time. "Third generation, look, that girl is lawless. She left the village without even saying hello. You have to take care of it." Hearing this, Zingifeng rolled his eyes at him and said, "Come on, you just talked about it, but I didn't see you send anyone to pick her up. You are still lawless. I think you should bear the main responsibility for this." Tsukumo smiled awkwardly, and then changed the subject. "The stalemate in Kumagakure is a good thing for Konoha. I was worried that Minato might not be able to suppress the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki by himself, but now that Kushina has gone there, the problem has been solved at once. This is cause for celebration." Seeing that Tsukumo was as thick-skinned as a city wall, Zingifeng shook his head helplessly and laughed. You are so ungrateful." After getting the advantage, it can be said that Kumagakure has gained a firm foothold. The chakra cannon developed by Orochimaru has played an indispensable role in this. Don't forget to make a note of this. Hoshino Kaede gave a suggestion both of them read the battle report from the front more than once, and the most eye-catching one was the chakra cannon. Such an impressive record was achieved in the first actual combat, which is worthy of the title of a powerful weapon. Orochimaru indirectly helped Konoha share some of the pressure, and this contribution cannot be erased. After hearing this, Tsukumo immediately expressed his opinion and said seriously, "Of course, without the chakra cannon, Konoha's casualties would be huge, merits must be rewarded, and faults must be punished. This is what Konoha has always adhered to and is reflected in all aspects. Hoshino Kaede nodded, then said, "Have you heard any news about Orochimaru recently?" "What is he doing recently?" Tsukumo thought for a moment and said, "I haven't really paid much attention to him. There have been too many things going on lately, but he should be hiding somewhere doing his research now." Zingai Feng agreed, "This is in line with his personality. He's the most persistent person I have ever met, fanatically persistent, but it is precisely because of this almost morbid persistence that he can overcome the obstacles on his way." Upon hearing this, Tsukumo couldn't help but sigh. The Hokage clan used to be samurai, but after the rise of ninjas, they had to join Konoha in order to survive. Zingai Feng smiled without saying anything, drank his tea slowly, and listened to him quietly. "And now, the rise of technology is inevitable. And I can also foresee the decline of the ninja profession in the future," Tsukumo said firmly. Hoshino Kaede smiled and then added, "But the decline of ninjas has led to the rise of civilians. Ninjas are no longer the only ones in power. This may lower the status of ninjas, but it will mean a lot to the entire Konoha." After hearing this, Shuamiao took out the documents he had prepared long ago from the drawer and opened them. Zingai Feng shifted his gaze and glanced at him, then raised his eyebrows and the smile on his lips gradually deepened. The title of the document clearly read, "Proposal on School Expansion, Admission of Civilians and Increase of General Courses." Tsukumo, "Once this document is issued, it will be no less than an earthquake," Hoshino Kaede said meaningfully. Upon hearing this, Tsukumo flashed a disapproving smile on his face. "Earthquake? Third generation? This is not up to them." Zingai Feng shrugged without commenting on his words and didn't say much. "I can already foresee that the ninja family is going to be in chaos." Shuamiao raised the corner of his mouth, narrowed his eyes, leaned forward, and a hint of cruelty flashed across his eyes. "Then we need to see if my knife is sharp enough." In a secret base in the land of water, Orochimaru stared at the data in the instrument intently, muttering to himself from time to time, "Did it fail again? What went wrong? The cells are not active enough, and their vitality is lacking. We have to find a new test subject." Orochimaru closed his eyes and thought for a while. After a while, the door of the laboratory was opened, and it was the subordinates that Orochimaru had recruited along the way. "Lord Orochimaru, Kumagakure and Konoha are at a stalemate, and a war has broken out between Iwagakure and Konoha." Orochimaru's eyes flickered slightly, and he said, "I understand." The subordinates bowed their heads respectfully and retreated. Orochimaru took a deep breath, rubbed his brows, put down the experiment in his hands, and walked aside to rest. Sure enough, Konoha's edge is unstoppable. One person can challenge the three major ninja villages alone without any pressure. The development of the war was exactly as Orochimaru had expected. After a brief thought, he turned his attention back to the experiment at hand. "We still have to go to Konoha. Apart from the First Hokage, the Third Hokage has the highest cell activity." Orochimaru's thoughts gradually drifted away, and he decided to go back. He didn't dare to think about the cells of the first generation. It was a bit too presumptuous, and he was not familiar with the first generation. The remaining options are only 3 generations. Thinking of this, Orochimaru suddenly felt that he had been a little hasty in leaving Konoha. Forget it. Konoha isn't looking for me anyway, and no one will make things difficult for me if I return to the village. Before that, let's take care of some things first. Half a year later, it was the 44th year of Konoha compared to the beginning. After half a year, the front line has gradually stabilized. Large-scale battles rarely occur, and they are just tests. The largest scale of these was the war between Iwagakure and Konoha. Several major battles broke out between the two sides, with varying degrees of casualties on both sides, but overall Konoha was still the winner. The Uchiha and Hyuga families are indeed big families, and the fighting power they unleash in times of crisis should not be underestimated. Elite ninjas emerge in large numbers, and their overall quality is even better than that of Konoha ninjas. The most amazing among them was Uchiha Shimizu, who was extremely brave on the battlefield and killed dozens of Jonin in a row. This record made him famous. The Hyuga clan was not to be outdone, and following closely behind were the two brothers Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hisashi. He also made a name for himself with his superb soft fists and white eyes. The people of Iwagakure village were so angry that they gnashed their teeth. Such a luxurious lineup caused them to suffer heavy losses. The casualty ratio reached 4-1, which means that 4 of our own people died for every 1 enemy killed. Fortunately, we have the advantage in numbers, otherwise this battle would be impossible to win. Within half a year, countless battles of all sizes were taking place in various parts of the ninja world, and the sky seemed to be covered with a layer of haze. And on this day, a person who had disappeared for many days entered Konoha and went straight to find Kid Hoshino. What a rare guest, Orochimaru. Hoshino Kaede raised his eyebrows, then gestured for him to sit down and talk. Orochimaru was not polite. He sat down directly and said straight to the point, I came here today in the hope of obtaining your cells. Zengai Feng paused for a moment while pouring tea, then laughed and looked at him. You are so rude, saying such presumptuous words right at the start. Hearing this, Orochimaru smiled on his fair face. You should know whether this is presumptuous or not. Chapter 245, The war has been going on for 2 years. Konoha is 45 years old. Hoshino Kaede smiled slightly and gestured for him to sit down first. Orochimaru didn't hesitate and sat directly opposite him. Then, Zengai Feng said, You want my cells for research, for my ideal. Orochimaru spoke concisely and directly, not treating Hoshino Kaede as an outsider at all. Immortality. Hoshino Kaede couldn't help but say it, looking at Orochimaru. From his pale face, he showed his rock-hard persistence as always. Orochimaru knew that any disguise would be useless in front of this person, so he did not retreat and looked at him directly. After a long time, Zengai Feng chuckled, with unclear emotions in his deep eyes. After a few seconds, he stood up and walked into the house. Orochimaru sipped the hot tea and waited patiently. A moment later, Zengai Feng came out with a few glass bottles filled with bright blood in his hands. Orochimaru looked at the glass bottle. The strange color in his eyes was so strong that it was about to overflow. If he hadn't been suppressing the impulse in his heart, he would have collapsed long ago. Your blood is really strange. Orochimaru's eyes flashed with a strong light, and there was some excitement in his tone under the bright sunlight. The blood in the glass bottle reveals a golden glow, adding a touch of mystery. Hoshino Kaede sat down and placed a glass bottle on the table in front of her, but she did not intend to give it to Orochimaru immediately. Seeing this, Orochimaru smiled and said, What do you want? He is determined to get it no matter what the cost. After saying this, Zengai Feng raised the corner of his mouth and looked at him with appreciation. You react very quickly. In that case, I'll just say it straight. Without you, Konoha's technological development will be very slow, so my condition is, in the next 20 years, you need to continue to develop technology for Konoha's livelihood. Hearing this, Orochimaru thought about it for a moment and agreed, okay, it's just 20 years. Once there is a breakthrough in research, the time lost can be made up. Besides, he didn't betray the village and was still a ninja of Konoha, so he made some contributions to Konoha's research. After getting the answer, Hoshino Kaede handed the glass bottle to Orochimaru and reminded him, You have seen my cells, they are different from those of ordinary people, it's more active than the teacher's. Be careful and don't waste it. Looking at the almost golden blood in his hand, Orochimaru nodded silently, then carefully put it away, and swallowed it in one gulp. The corner of Zengai Feng's mouth twitched, and he held his forehead helplessly and said, Orochimaru, you? He stopped talking halfway, and finally Zengai Feng sighed deeply, then waved his hand. Forget it, just pretend I didn't say anything. When you leave, remember to check on Jiraiya and Tsunade. Hearing this, Orochimaru suddenly asked, Are they not together yet? Zengai Feng made a riddle and said, Soon, it will happen in the next few years. After listening to this, Orochimaru chuckled and murmured softly, It's good. After saying this, he walked out silently. He came quietly and left quietly. Then, everything became quiet. Hoshino Kaede lay leisurely on the chair, his body swaying slightly. He thought the world was quiet and he could have a good nap, but before he could close his eyes for a minute, something happened again. The visitor was the familiar Hatake Tsukumo, who said as soon as he entered the room, Third generation. Don't sleep, I want to discuss something with you. Helplessly, Zengai Feng sat up, his face looking speechless, and even with a hint of resentment. If you have something to say, tell me now. If it's not important, I'll beat you up. In the entire Konoha, only Kid Hoshino dares to say this to the current Hokage. If it were anyone else, Tsukumo would have hit you head-on with his sword and cut you into 8 pieces. Of course, this is an exception for the first generation, because he couldn't beat him. After half a year of purge, all the old nobles in the capital have been investigated. The crimes they committed are shocking. Nearly 90% of the nobles have killed people, and some even have hundreds of people killed. Zengai Feng opened his eyelids and glanced at him. So, you want to kill them all and put an end to it all? After he finished speaking, Shuameo actually nodded affirmatively, with a murderous intent surging from his body. They are all a bunch of parasites. It would be better to kill them. These people own nearly 70% of the capital's wealth. It would take hundreds of trucks to transport it all to Konoha. They deserve to be killed. Hearing this, Xing Gaifeng shook his head and disagreed with his words. It is indeed easier and more convenient for you to kill him, but this involves thousands of lives, which is a bit too cruel. Shuo Mao hesitated and said, but, if we don't kill him, what else can we do? Xing Gaifeng smiled and said, for those nobles who live a life of luxury, we can confiscate all the property, then pick out some of the most heinous people and execute them. You will know what to do after that. Hearing this idea, Shuo Mao's eyes lit up. Good idea. This way, we can both deter people and ensure stability. As expected of a third-generation man, he solved his worries with just a few words. After finalizing this matter, Shuo Mao brought up another matter, regarding the establishment of a regular school. When do you think it would be a good time to start? Hearing this, Xing Gaifeng shook his head. This is something you decided. Don't ask me about everything, otherwise what's the point of having you as the Hokage? Normal schools are imperative. You can figure it out on your own. That's it. You can leave. Hearing these blatant words of expulsion, Tsukumo opened his mouth, but only saw Hoshino Kaede waving his hand and starting to expel him helplessly. Shuo Mao had to leave, and began to think about the date when the school would open. Tsukumo has a good idea, but he's a little too hasty. Hoshino Kaede closed his eyes slightly and only started to comment after the person walked away. It is a taboo to start preparing for the next task before the war is over. The premise for the implementation of all policies is that Konoha is stable and peaceful, and the priorities cannot be reversed. Shuo Mao still needs to calm down. Different positions mean different things. You need to think twice before you act. After saying that, Xing Gaifeng seemed to have fallen asleep, snoring softly and falling into a dream in the blink of an eye. Another year has passed, and Konoha has been in existence 45th year. The ninja world is still in the midst of war. It has been 2 years since the war began, and the situation is generally stable, but careful and perceptive people have discovered that this stability is extremely fragile and can be shattered at the slightest touch, and a large-scale war could break out at any time. In fact, this is indeed the case. After Kumagakure and Iwagakure, Kirigakure began to become restless compared to the other two villages. Kirigakure was relatively stable. There was no major battle at all, only local fights. Konoha was also very confused about this, but did not slack off. Instead, he was alert just in case. Chapter 246, Reversal? The 8-Gate Dunjia Formation. Kick the Mizukage. Before the rainstorm comes, no one knows the time. Beneath the calm water surface, there are raging waves, ready to burst. A week later, the third large-scale war broke out. The third Mizukage personally took to the battlefield, leading many elite troops to attack and raid the Konoha camp. Catching Konoha off guard, Konoha Commander-in-Chief Midori Shishio looked at the sudden attack by Kirigakure with wide eyes, then turned his head to look at the person in charge of intelligence and reconnaissance, grabbed his collar and yelled, "Assholes! What are the investigators doing? They actually let someone sneak up on them without noticing." The person in charge was sweating profusely. This was a serious dereliction of duty on his part, and there was no room for rebuttal at this time. Yu Guangyu tried to smooth things over and said, "Zizio, now is not the time to pursue this. We can talk about it later." Zihi's Henhong also echoed, "The most important thing now is to resist the foreign enemies, and the rest can be dealt with after the war." Zixiao calmed down after hearing what the two said, but his expression was still not good. He glared at the person in charge and then gave an order in a deep voice, "Tell the teams not to resist. The Mizukage is quite powerful. Don't make useless sacrifices." As soon as he finished speaking, someone came behind him to convey the order. After making arrangements for their affairs after death, everyone threw themselves into the battle. The elite team brought by the Mizukage consisted of about 100 people, including the 7 ninja swordsmen and the 3 tails Jinchuriki, Kiradachi Yagura. This force should not be underestimated, as it includes most of the top combat forces of Kirigakure, not to mention the existence of the Jinchuriki among them. According to the original trajectory, Kiruda Yagura was not yet a Jinchuriki at this time, but due to the butterfly effect, the time was eventually advanced by several years. Inside the camp, fog filled the sky. The thick mist blocked the vision and made it impossible to see the road ahead. In this environment, Wu Ain had a natural advantage, the advantage of assassination. In the ninja world, the assassination methods of the Kirigakure Anbu are the most outstanding, because they have matching assassination ninjutsu to improve the accuracy and success rate of assassinations. "Help! Someone help me! Damn Kirigakure, come out if you can!" Screams echoed throughout the camp. In just 10 minutes, Konoha lost hundreds of people. After a while, The mist dissipated, revealing the figure of Kurigakure and corpses on the ground. Blood washed the eyes of everyone in Konoha. Midori Shishio was furious and immediately rushed towards the Mizukage, while the others also found their opponents. The war was about to break out. The panicked Konoha ninjas gathered together again and launched a counterattack towards the village of Kurigakure on the battlefield with swords and sabers. The situation changed rapidly. The unified Konoha ninjas gradually gained the upper hand with their numerical advantage, but the crucial battle is not over yet. The Mizukage is the key to the battle. After several rounds, the Mizukage's expression remained unchanged and he seemed to be at ease. On the other hand, Mitarashi Shishio had his clothes in disarray and had small wounds on his body, which were caused by the Mizukage. The Mizukage looked at the Konoha commander in front of him with admiration in his eyes. "You are very good. Konoha is indeed full of geniuses." Utarashi Shishio's face was calm, as if what he heard were not words of praise. The Mizukage narrowed his eyes, then changed the subject. "But compared to your teacher, it's still a little bit worse." Midori Shishio's teacher is naturally the third Hokage, Hoshino Kaede. In the ninja world, no one can compare to the teacher. "Not even you," Shishio said coldly, his fighting spirit still undiminished. Hearing this, the Mizukage actually nodded approvingly. "Indeed, no one can surpass the third Hokage. I'm sure every ninja would not deny this." Midori Shishio took a deep breath, his eyes were extremely solemn. In terms of strength alone, he was still slightly inferior. After all, he was a Kage, and in terms of strength, he stood at the top of the ninja world. In a one-on-one fight, he would never have the advantage. Thinking of this, Shishio slowly closed his eyes and recalled what Zingai Feng said to him when he left the village. "Shishio, you have great talent and can reach the level of a shadow, but you may not be a match for the Mizukage. In times of crisis, you can let Might I take your place." Thinking back to reality, Shishio couldn't help but smile bitterly and thought, "Teacher, your prediction is so accurate." But he immediately shouted to Might I, "Die, the Mizukage is in your hands." After saying that, he immediately moved in the direction of Might I, and at the same time, after hearing Shishio's words, Might I also started moving. The Mizukage looked at Might I in front of him, feeling confused. He didn't expect that the commander-in-chief, Shikida Mitarashi, would replace him at the last minute. "Boy, who are you?" Hearing the words of the Mizukage, Might I showed his big white teeth and said, "I am Might I, Might Guy, never heard of him." The Mizukage searched his mind for a long time but couldn't find any information. Hearing this, Might I supported himself on the ground with both hands, looked up at the water shadow, and said with a smile, "In the future, you will remember me well." Then, he whispered, "Die, burn your youth." As soon as he finished speaking, a huge amount of chakra suddenly surged out of Might I's body, and it was extremely violent, like an angry lion. With this level of chakra, you are definitely not an unknown person. The Mizukage looked at Might I solemnly. He was deeply shocked, and the calm expression on his face suddenly disappeared, replaced by a face of serious readiness. Might I growled a few times, then exerted force with his feet, and actually crushed the ground directly. He turned into a red meteor and shot out, "Death door. Open, shocking door. Open, Jingman. Open, Dooman. Open, injury door. Open, the gate of life. Open, hush. Open, open the door. Open, reverse." The 8 gates ninjutsu formation, with a rumbling sound, Mighty's blood boiled and his heart beat violently, as if a pump was cheering up his body. With all 8 gates opened, Might I's chakra surged more than 100 times. At this moment, he looked like a ferocious beast with red hair and beard. In an instant, time seemed to be frozen. The Mizukage's pupils shrank sharply, and just as he was about to move his body, he was hit by Might Guy's terrifying kick in the next second. At that moment, a terrifying sonic boom occurred immediately. The third Mizukage didn't even have time to react and was kicked into the ground. The terrifying after effect dragged the water shadow for thousands of meters, forming a long gully. This jaw-dropping scene left everyone present speechless, and without exception, they all opened their mouths wide. After waiting for a long time, someone swallowed and spoke tremblingly. Am I dazzled?" The Mizukage was defeated by just one kick. This sound was like lighting the fuse of a cannonball, causing both Konoha and Kurigakure to explode. Various emotions such as shock, horror, fear and terror were intertwined on everyone's face. In an instant it was simply unbelievable that the Kage of a village was defeated so easily, and by an unknown ninja at that. Of course, after today, Might I's name will surely resound throughout the ninja world. Defeating the Mizukage will surely make him one of the top strongest men in the ninja world, and even one of the best. Chapter 247, Kirigakure was defeated and the Mizukage was captured. The defeat of the Mizukage had a huge impact. The Kirigakure suddenly panicked and became leaderless. However, for Konoha, it is undoubtedly a great thing someone suddenly roared, igniting the originally silent battlefield again. Charge! Get rid of those Kirigakure bastards. Witnessing the defeat of the Mizukage with their own eyes caused the morale of the Kirigakure to plummet and the people became unstable. Wars fought with morale, and the defeat of the leader had a direct impact. Kirigakure was immediately at a disadvantage. The tenuous stability was pierced like a window paper, adding fuel to the war. Yutaro Zixio was overjoyed. It was truly an eye-opener and he was deeply shocked, but now was not the time to celebrate. He suppressed his excitement and rushed towards the 7 ninja swordsmen. What will happen if a cage-level warrior fights against 7 elite Chunin? Are the two sides evenly matched, or is one side crushing the other? Midori Shishio immediately gave the answer. Facing the Mizukage, he was constrained everywhere and couldn't gain any benefit at all. As soon as the opponent changed, the aura of a powerful shadow-level warrior suddenly emerged. Keng, the sound of metal colliding was heard, and Zixio, holding a kunai, directly fought against the 7 people in close combat. Although they were outnumbered, their momentum was as blazing as dry wood and blazing fire, forcing the 7 men to retreat again and again. The 7 people had already been physically exhausted, and now they were faced with an opponent at the cage level. They were immediately at a disadvantage, with wounds all over their bodies. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost was extremely upset. Damn it, this is really too much. Zixio heard this and curled his lips. You still have the energy to speak, then the target is you. As soon as he finished speaking, he accelerated his pace and rushed towards him at the speed of an arrow. With a loud bang and a flash of white light, the kunai pierced directly into the neck of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost, and blood immediately gushed out. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost had his eyes wide open and covered his neck with both hands. After holding on for a few seconds, he fell to the ground with a bang. Upon closer inspection, he was already dead. Mitarashi Shisho calmly wiped the kunai on his clothes and said, "The first one." The voice was cold and murderous, as if he was a cold-blooded killer without any emotion. Killing an elite Chunin so easily made the others realize something instantly and their expressions became horrified. Black Hole Ya took a few steps back uncontrollably and said in a trembling voice, You didn't use your full strength from the beginning." Hearing this, Yutarashi Zixio showed a playful smile, rubbing his fingers on the kunai, and said, "You are not worthy of my full strength." This sentence was really infuriating, but the few people had no intention of delving into it at the moment. They only thought about how to escape from here. Zixio's gaze shifted and finally fell on Li Xianchuan. At that moment, Li Xianchuan felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and a chill gradually rose all over his body. His eyes were filled with fear and his whole body was shaking with fear, as if the person in front of him was the god of death who was about to reap his life. Seeing Kirizum Kishimaru's expression, Yutaro Shixio chuckled, with disdain flashing in his eyes, and said, "Kurihane. Kishimaru, I heard that you are cruel and bloodthirsty and you like death." Every word was like a verdict, causing Kirishin Kishimaru's heart to beat violently, and the aura of death gradually enveloped his entire body. No. Kirishin Kishimaru's pupils contracted. He was already frightened out of his wits. It's funny that someone with blood on his hands would be afraid of death. It's ironic. This look did not make Zixio feel any sympathy, but instead made him feel even more disgusted. It's insulting that such a person can be a ninja. Zixio walked straight towards him, with a cold light in his eyes. The smile at the corner of his mouth looked like a devil's smile in their eyes. At that moment the battle is still going on. Blood is spilled on the battlefield. Zixio wields a kunai and kills Kirizum Kishimaru without hesitation. Another one of the 7 ninja swordsmen died. The killing has not stopped. The pace of plundering lives has not ceased. Yutarashi Zixio locked onto the remaining people and continued to swing the butcher knife. At this moment, the situation was clear at a glance. The Kirigakure's surprise attack failed, the Mizukage was half dead, and the 7 ninja swordsmen were also eliminated one by one. An hour later, the hidden mist was completely destroyed. Konoha won a great victory, and the 3rd Mizukage was seriously injured and captured. Seeing such a good situation, Yutarashi Zixio would naturally not let it go, and immediately ordered everyone to attack. A day later, Kirigakure, which had lost its backbone, was the first to be defeated, with more than half of the thousands of ninjas it brought lost, and the rest were all captured. This news quickly spread throughout the ninja world, and at the same time, the news that my guy had severely injured the Mizukage with one kick also spread in an instant. Like boiling water, an uproar broke out in the ninja world. Everyone who heard the news was shocked, But they were shocked for different reasons. Konoha cheered because the defeat of Kirigakure directly led to the final outcome of the war, and the situation of this war has become clear. However, Kumagakure and Iwagakure felt heavy in their hearts, as if there was a dark cloud over their heads that would never go away and was hidden deep in their hearts. The Reikage was even more furious, and bluntly said that the Kirigakure were all a bunch of trash and were of no use at all. It was a shame for the coalition forces that they were defeated by Konoha so quickly. The difference was that Inoki just sighed deeply, shook his head and didn't say much, but his body became more hunched, as if he was carrying a heavy burden behind him. One family is happy while the other is sad. The expressions on both sides are different, with different sorrows and joys. Konoha, the Hokage's residence. When Shuameo heard the battle report, he immediately smiled and said good things repeatedly. I didn't expect that I actually had such strength and could defeat the Mizukage. He was the biggest contributor to this battle. After saying that, he looked at Zingai Feng and said cheerfully, third generation, your vision is still as good as ever. I didn't expect the 8 gates ninjutsu to be so powerful that it could open 8 gates in a row. Hearing this, Zingai Feng shook his head and corrected him, you said one less word. I modified the 8 gates to reduce its power, but it is more secure. If it was the original 8 gates, the Mizukage would have been kicked to death long ago. There would be no question of him being captured. After saying this, Tsukumo couldn't help but twitch his lips. If that's the case, then the original power would be even higher. Zingai Feng took a quick glance and knew what he was thinking, and immediately poured a bucket of cold water on him. Forget about your little calculations. I have only worn one of the 8 gates of ninjutsu for so many years and have practiced to the point where all 8 gates are fully opened. This jutsu is created by the 2nd generation. As of today, everyone has given up on it except for his son who practices it. Upon hearing this, Shuomao laughed dryly and said, what a pity. Zingai Feng said with a smile, don't think about it, just prepare for the Kirigakure affairs. After the defeat, a lot of things will come up and you will be busy. Hearing this, Shuomao's smile suddenly froze, his expression like a frost-bitten eggplant. He covered his forehead and said, looks like I'll have to stay up all night from now on. Chapter 248 Rumor, General Course? In the ninja school, Obito, who has been promoted to the 4th grade, sat in his seat, supporting his chin with one hand, looking out the window, while listening to the conversation of students in the classroom. Have you heard? Kirigakure was defeated. Konoha won a great victory. Yeah, it is said that a ninja who is proficient in taijutsu defeated the Mizukage. His name seems to be Might Matt Dai? It seems like there's only one person in our class with this last name. Now that you mention it, I seem to have some impression of him. He's the number 1 taijutsu player, Might Guy. That should be his father. I didn't expect that he is so powerful that he can defeat a Kage. That's right. Who would have thought of that before? The news of Kirigakure's defeat spread throughout Konoha, and naturally the school was no exception. The discussion became even more intense. After all, they were now reserve ninjas, and it was natural for them to admire their predecessors. Uchiha Obito looked at Might Guy, who had attracted much attention due to his father's rising fame, and couldn't help but sigh and complained quietly, that guy is so popular. I really envy him. After he finished speaking, he heard a chuckle next to his ear. Obito's body stiffened and he turned his head mechanically to look. Nahara-rin, who was sitting next to Obito, covered her mouth with her hands and chuckled. She stretched out her little hand and gently stroked Obito, comforting him. Okay, Obito, I know you want to go to the battlefield and make merit, but war is no joke. At the end of her speech, her face became serious and earnest. In Konoha, among people of the same age, only Nahara-rin has the best relationship with Obito. The two of them can play together, and Obito listens to her words. Hearing this, Obito's face flushed and he turned his head away awkwardly, but he still agreed, I know, I will stay in the village. Hearing this, Nahara-rin smiled and was very happy. She knew Obito's character and he would always do what he promised, except being late. Hey, Lin. After finishing this topic, Obito immediately said, have you heard anything else recently? Perhaps thinking that what he said was not accurate, Obito immediately added, it's just some special things. Something special. Nahara-rin tried to think hard, and suddenly thought of something, and said, oh, there's indeed a special rumor. After she finished speaking, she looked around with a very cautious expression, as if she was afraid of being heard by others, and then she lowered her voice and spoke. I heard that Konoha is planning to expand the school. Obito tilted his head and asked in confusion, expanding the school? What's so strange about this? Isn't it common for schools to expand, As Konoha's population increases daily, the number of school-age children also increases accordingly, making the original ninja school seem a little small. With this in mind, Shuameo immediately allocated funds for expansion and renovated all school facilities. In order to expand the school area, he directly relocated the surrounding residential buildings and provided compensation after the renovation. The school's area has increased significantly, several new teaching buildings have been built, and they are equipped with the latest technology. This is because Konoha is wealthy and has strong economic strength, and is willing to create a good environment for students. However, there were still people who felt that the money was not worth spending. However, before Tsukumo could say anything, Hoshino Kaede directly spoke up and retorted, "Education is a major undertaking, so don't delay it. Don't look at things with your narrow-minded perspective. If Konoha wants to prosper in the future, education is the foundation. Anyone who dares to oppose it will be severely punished." After he finished speaking, some of the dissenting voices immediately disappeared, and His Majesty remained as strong as ever. Naruto said, "But it is said that the school expansion is to add a general department, not a ninja department." After hearing this, Obito opened his mouth wide and couldn't help but exclaimed, "General department. Did you hear it right?" The noise naturally attracted the angry glares from the people around him. Obito apologized with a smile, and spoke in a low voice after the noise calmed down. "When did you hear this news?" Obito's brows slightly frowned. After following Kaede Hoshino twice, he had gained a lot of experience and was keenly aware that the storm behind it was not simple. "I think I happened to hear it a few days ago," Naruto said truthfully. Obito pondered after hearing this. "A few days ago? This is not simple. This kind of information is absolutely confidential, but now it is circulating in the village. The identity of the person behind this can be imagined." Obito looked towards the direction of the Hokage's residence with a hidden gaze. Naruto didn't notice anything unusual, but when she heard Obito say this, she couldn't help but worry. Could it be that the enemy village spread it, hoping to disrupt Konoha? Hearing this outrageous reason, Obito smiled awkwardly, scratched his head, and continued her words without blushing or breathing hard. "Yes, that should be it, but these have nothing to do with us. I'm sure the Hokage-sama has already prepared for them. There's no need to worry." Obito's comfort made Naruto feel a little relieved. She didn't think there was anything wrong with this statement and accepted it with peace of mind. After comforting Lin, Obito lowered his head, making it impossible to see the expression on his face, and he was thinking in his heart, "General Department, what does Hokage-sama want to do? Did he give up being a ninja?" Obito began to wonder, but with his brain, he could never figure out the deeper meaning behind this. While Obito was thinking hard, the Uchiha clan was discussing the matter he mentioned. However, since most of the tribesmen were taken away in the war, there are not many people here now, so they can be counted individually. The previous Uchiha clan leader, Uchiha Kitajima, calmly picked up the tea and took a sip. Then looked at Uchiha Jing in front of him and asked leisurely, "Kami, what do you think Hokage-sama is thinking about?" Uchiha Kagami stood straight and knelt upright. He was over 50 years old, with more wrinkles on his face, and his strength was slowly declining. "Master Clan Leader, you don't have to test me." Uchiha Jing still called Kitajima the clan leader and said with a smile, "I'm retired now. Years of fighting and training have left me with old illnesses. I'm not far from death." Uchiha Kagami spoke of death in a calm and nonchalant tone after his secret thoughts were exposed. Beidao just shrugged and said with emotion, "So many years have passed, and you and I have both grown old. Don't mind it. It's my old problem again," Uchiha Kitajima explained to the mirror in response. Uchiha Jing smiled and said, "Your love for your family makes Jing admire you." Uchiha Kitajima paused, then looked at him deeply, waiting for what to say next. Just by listening to Uchiha Kagami, his whole body suddenly changed to a relaxed and gentle temperament, and his pair of Mangekyo Sharingan stared straight at him. "But there are some things that you should pretend not to know. It will be good not only for the family but also for you. Hokage-sama's decision, is there anything else we can do except accept it?" The last words were a rhetorical question, meaning that Uchiha was doing fine now, so don't make trouble. Chapter 249 Discussion, Conclusion. Hearing Uchiha Jing's rude words, Kitajima just smiled and shook his head. "I don't have that intention. Konoha is not the same as before. No one dares to make any unusual moves now. Besides, who would be so irrational as to not maintain a stable life but instead think about destroying it?" Uchiha Jing looked at Kitajima with a melancholy gaze, as if he wanted to see through his true inner thoughts, but Kitajima looked normal and calm. After a long while, Jing had a clue in his mind, and then calmly changed the subject. "Haha, clan leader?" Uchiha has made a great contribution this time. On the battlefield of Iwagakure, his son Uchiha Shimizu shined brightly and his reputation gradually grew. The Sharingan's notoriety once again resounded among the ninjas, making people tremble with fear hearing this. Uchiha Kitajima smiled with satisfaction and said modestly, "It's all because of you that Shimizu has been well taught. That's why he's what he is today." After hearing this, Uchiha Jing shook his head. "I was very busy when he was a child and had no time to accompany him. I guess he's still angry now. It's normal for children to feel depressed for a while." Uchiha Kitajima comforted him. Jing sighed and said nothing more. Seeing this, Kitajima took the initiative to change the subject. "Kagami, who do you think can take the lead and shoulder the responsibility of Konoha's prosperity in this generation of Uchiha?" After saying this, Uchiha Jing's expression slightly changed. He slowly raised his head and looked directly at Kitajima. After considering for a moment, he spoke. "Jing naturally knows what the clan leader is thinking. The position of the fifth Hokage is extraordinary and crucial to Konoha. We need a Hokage like the third Hokage." As he spoke, he paused, as if searching in his mind for an outstanding Uchiha of this generation, and then he continued, "This generation of young people is still too young to see anything." Upon hearing this, Beidao nodded slightly, as if he agreed with what he said. "Alice, it seems we still need to wait for the seeds to germinate." After hearing this, Jing suddenly smiled and said, "That's not necessary. Isn't there a member of the tribe who is very close to the third generation? Are you talking about Ibiro?" Kitajima thought for a moment and said, "That child is indeed talented, and has already opened the dual Magatama Sharingan." But, Kitajima paused and his expression suddenly became strange. "It's just that he is too straightforward and doesn't know how to read people's hearts." As he said this, Beidao shook his head, feeling that it was inappropriate. "It's lonely at the top, and the position of Hokage seems very beautiful, but it is actually full of thorns, and you will hurt yourself if you are not careful. It cannot be controlled by someone who is not mentally sophisticated and determined." After hearing these words, Jing smiled and said nothing. "It seems that the clan leader is not optimistic about him." Kitajima nodded and said bluntly, "Obito can be the backbone of Konoha, but he can't be the pillar. This means that he has no chance of becoming Hokage." After saying this, Jing neither agreed nor disagreed, remaining silent at the same time. The Hyuga clan, who were also members of a powerful Konoha clan, were also arguing, just like they did during the election for the second Hokage. Since the current head of the Hyuga family is not here, the meeting can only be chaired by the old head of the family. Hyuga Mori. All the elders from the main branches of each clan were present. At a glance, they were all new faces. Hinata Shen cleared his throat and then spoke, "Everyone, you all know about the news of adding a general education course. What do you think?" As soon as the words fell, someone spoke up. It was the second elder of the clan, a middle-aged man, who began to analyze. "Master Shang, since the third generation came to power, Konoha has undergone major changes, most of which have to do with the common people. Now, the fourth Sama is spreading the news, and his intention is very clear, which is to improve the status of the common people. We have to guard against this. If this continues, the status of ninjas will decline." Perhaps these words express the thoughts of most people. The education they received has made them feel that civilians cannot be superior to ninjas, and this has become a consensus. It seems that civilians should be civilians and their status should be below that of ninjas. For a while, there was constant discussion. Except for a few younger elders, the older ones all made it clear that they wanted to protest to the fourth generation. Hinata Shengdu saw it all, and looking at the people who were so angry and united against the enemy, he couldn't help but sigh. "Father, you are right. Being at ease for too long will make people rusty. The Zong family is too peaceful." Hinata Shen coughed lightly, and the scene instantly became quiet. As the old patriarch, he still had some authority. After looking around, his gaze finally stopped on some young elders, all of whom became elders by inheriting their father's positions. "What do you think of what the second elder said?" After he finished speaking, the second elder frowned, and a bad premonition emerged in his heart. Feeling Hinata Sheng's encouraging gaze, some younger juniors hesitated and then spoke out their ideas. "Master Sheng, during the Warring States period, there were constant wars and few people died of natural causes. Even children had to go to the battlefield. It was not until the first generation joined forces with Uchiha Madara to establish Konoha village that wars became less frequent, allowing children to have a place to live. What I want to say is that the times are progressing. Before the appearance of ninjas, samurai were the mainstream of the world. After their appearance, samurai fell into decline. Now, ninjas are like samurai before. The rise of commoners is inevitable, As soon as he finished speaking, the second elder stood up and angrily scolded him. What nonsense! How can a young boy talk nonsense like this? You are simply forgetting your roots. You forgot that you are from Hyuga and even spoke well of Konoha? In a fit of rage, the second elder spoke without restraint, separating Konoha and Hyuga in his words. If this was heard by someone with ulterior motives and then spread, the Hyuga clan would be in big trouble. Hinata Shing slammed the table, pointed at the second elder and cursed, "Asshole! How dare you say such a thing? Do you want Hinata to be doomed?" The second elder was so confused after being scolded that it took him a long time to realize what he had just said. Immediately, beads of sweat covered his forehead and fear filled his eyes. He hurriedly explained, "Master Shang, that's not what I meant." Hinata Shang waved his hands, not wanting to listen to his explanation at all. He glared at him and said, "Second elder, you are speaking without restraint and have violated the clan rules. After the meeting, you will receive your punishment." The second elder gave a bitter smile when he heard this. Since he was not very careful with his mouth, he could only accept it then. Hinata Shang said, "You have heard what I said just now. The era of ninja's dominance is coming to an end. As you all know, the chakra cannon developed by Orochimaru on the Kumagakure battlefield is very powerful and it caused Kumagakure to suffer a great loss. From now on, ninjutsu will no longer be unique. The opening of general courses is imperative. No individual or family can stop it, no matter who it is." Hinata Mori's words determined the outcome of the meeting, leaving those who opposed speechless. Even the most stubborn second elder remained silent. Seeing this, Hinata Shang glanced around and nodded secretly in his heart. "It seems that you have thought it through." With the accumulation of years, Hinata Shang has keen insight and has a rough understanding of the meaning behind ordinary subjects. Therefore, he made a decision with strength when it comes to matters concerning the survival of his family. He always cares about it. Chapter 250, Missed Captive. A few days later, Tsukumo came to the gate in person with a gentle smile on his face, as if he was waiting for someone. After Kurigakure was defeated, a lot of troubles followed, and Tsukumo's hair was almost falling out. Fortunately, after being the Hokage for several years, he is pretty good at handling these things. At least there are no problems. But there was one thing that concerned Tsukumo very much. Since Zixio was still needed at the front line, he had to let Might Guy lead the wounded and prisoners back. Among the prisoners were the Mizukage and other high-ranking members of the Mist Village. This was a big deal, and the importance of a village's shadow was self-evident. Shuameo said nothing and immediately waited at the entrance of the village, and no one could stop him. That's why the scene appeared. Tsukumo, who was wearing the Hokage robe, was overjoyed, and his character, which had been trained for many years, could not help but surge in waves. The Mizukage has been captured. This is a great relief to Konoha. It can be considered an unexpected surprise. Tsukumo thought so in his heart. Maruboshi Kosuke was looking into the distance, and suddenly his expression changed. He discovered some traces and immediately said to Tsukumo, "Hokage-sama, they are coming." As soon as he finished speaking, Tsukumo looked in the direction of the voice and saw Might Guy appear in the distance, followed by many people. Seeing this, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Our hero is back. In a great war, there are victories and defeats, and naturally there are heroes and losers. It is obvious that at this moment Might Guy and the wounded behind him are the heroes of Konoha." After a moment, the crowd came from far and near, and once again returned to Konoha after a long absence. They couldn't help but burst into tears and cried with joy when Tsukumo saw them. He stepped forward and said solemnly, "On behalf of all the people in Konoha, I express my highest respect to you. Thank you for your hard work." After saying that, Tsukumo bowed deeply to them, and everyone behind him did the same. The welcome ceremony was simple, with no flowers, no applause, and everything seemed so dull. But Shuomao's sincere look and sincere bow were better than any formalistic praise, and this was the best reward for them. Silence is better than words, and Tsukumo's attitude also moved the injured Konoha ninja. At this time, Might Guy brought up a person, who is the Sunday Mizukage of Kurigakure. "Hokage-sama, this is the Mizukage." Because of the kick from Might Guy earlier, the Mizukage was seriously injured and dying, but fortunately he received timely treatment and saved his life. However, even so, he is still in low spirits and his face is pale. Hearing this, Tsukumo's gaze fell on the Mizukage, and his sharp eyes immediately focused on him. "Mizukage, this should be the first time we meet," the Mizukage sneered. His entire body was sealed and he couldn't mobilize even a trace of chakra. "Oh, don't be so hypocritical. If you lose, you lose. There's nothing to say." Hearing such extreme words, Tsukumo shook his head, knowing that now was not the time to talk. and winked at Guji beside him. The latter immediately understood and asked the Anbu to take him to the prison after the Mizukage disappeared. Tsukumo immediately turned his gaze to another person, Kurachi Yagura. After the defeat of Kirigakure, the Three-Tails Jinchuriki was naturally no match for Four Hands with Two Fists and was eventually captured. He looks like a child, is short in stature, and appears to be no more than 10 years old, but he is actually quite old, which is very deceptive at this moment. Tsukumo narrowed his eyes and carefully observed this perfect Jinchuriki, and sighed after a long time. As expected of a perfect Jinchuriki, his chakra is truly unfathomable. If it weren't for Dai's unleashing of extraordinary strength, the outcome would have been hard to predict. When Gaji Yagura heard this, he looked up at him and chuckled. His emotions were calm, with no waves in his eyes. "You're too kind, Hokage." This strange reaction made Shumeo raise his eyebrows, with a strange look in his eyes, and he said curiously, "Stay calm, aren't you afraid of being captured?" Gaji Yagura looked calm and composed. "You won't do anything to us." His tone was very confident, as if he had foreseen the future. Seeing this, Tsukumo stretched out his hand to applaud him and praise him. "Your observation is very detailed. I believe you will be a strong contender for the future 4th Mizukage of Kirigakure. You are right, Konoha will not kill you." After saying this, Kirajita Yagura showed the expected expression, but before a few seconds, Tsukumo continued, "But this doesn't mean Konoha will treat you well." As soon as he finished speaking, Tsukumo waved his hand and the sealing team came over immediately. Gaji Yagura frowned and had a serious look on his face, which made him look particularly cute. "We can't feel at ease knowing that a perfect Jinchuriki is in Konoha?" After Tsukumo finished speaking, a person walked out of the sealing class. Judging from the clan emblem on his clothes, he was a member of the Uzumaki clan. Sealing techniques are the Uzumaki clan's signature technique, and the power is naturally different in their hands. I saw the Uzumaki ninja quickly forming hand seals and continuously engraving seals on Yagura Gajo, such as the 5 elements seal, the 8 trigram seal and so on, all of which were engraved on Yagura Gajo. Suddenly, in Tsukumo's eyes, the aura of the three-tail on Kurachi Yagura was gradually weakening until it was completely sealed. Seeing this, Tsukumo nodded in satisfaction. "Now I feel safe for you to enter Konoha?" Kurachi Yagura's face darkened slightly, and it was obvious that he could no longer sense the three tails, which was why he showed such an expression. Shumeo then said to Dai, "Take the wounded to the hospital first, and leave the rest to me." Dai nodded, and together with the Anbu, led everyone to the hospital, where preparations had been made. After they left, Tsukumo looked at Kurachi Yagura, and after a moment's silence, he said to Kasuke, "Although the three tails is sealed, just in case, please take him to the 3rd generation." Upon hearing this, Maruboshi Kasuke nodded and took Kuruju Yagura to meet Hoshino Kaede. After dealing with this matter, Shuomo let out a long sigh, smiled with relief, and muttered, "Finally solved. I can go home on time. If I don't go back, Kakashi will almost disown me." Thinking of Kakashi's depressed expression, Tsukumo couldn't help but laugh out loud, and Guji brought Kuruju Yagura to meet Hoshino Kaede. "So, it was Tsukumo who asked you to come?" Hoshino Kaede was speechless. He shook his head and looked at the fake child in front of him, saying helplessly, "Okay, I'll take him in for now." After saying this, Guji took his leave, leaving Kuruju Yagura and Hoshino Kaede staring at each other. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little stagnant, Zingai Feng coughed lightly and made way. "Come in, don't stand there, dinner will be served soon, and you just happened to make it." Hearing this, Gaji Yagura couldn't help but feel puzzled. It seemed that the person in front of him didn't seem to be too wary of him, so he couldn't help but ask, "You just trust me so much?" Hearing his words, Zingai Feng, who was walking in front, paused, tilted his head slightly, and chuckled, "Little boy, you think too highly of yourself. The tailed beasts are nothing to me. Think about what you should do first." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.